what is it like to be a practicing doctor and someone who never would have imagined this until you faced these
It's
forces
kind of
trying
exciting
to get you
actually
to
because during my medical residency, like towards the end of it, I was like, I just thought one day, I'm not a healer. I don't know how to heal anything. I'm just prolonging people's lives, treating their diseases with drugs. Like I'm a glorified pharmaceutical technician. I realized that one day. And I was like, I'm not a surgeon. I can't do surgery. So I write prescriptions. I do diagnoses and I write prescriptions. So I decided to go into a field where people really needed prescriptions. Like if you don't have kidney function, you're on dialysis. Like that's one of the glories of medicine. Like you could prolong people's lives. I really enjoyed that. But then after I left completely and started studying real physiology beyond what I learned in medicine, look, I'm learning a lot of stuff you're learning too, you know, like nootropics and all that stuff that you talk about. Well, I'm learning about that I love it actually. It's exciting. I've been liberated from a prison, essentially, from a stupid prison. where my brain was locked down and I was told what to do and how to do it, and then watching the results. It would be one thing if the results were good, okay? But the results aren't good. Like we treat symptoms. We treat hypertension. Hypertension is a symptom. It's not a disease. Hypertension can come from lots of different things. That's just one case in point. So I really love being able to now have the freedom to look at the full human being and their physiology and look at them as an electromagnetic entity that has some chemicals and vitamins, and help them direct their body back towards the blueprint that it was designed upon. And that's to me what real healing and real medicine is about. It's not about being antibiotic, anti-this, anti-that. It's like, how about pro-life? How about we get your, you know, you're going out working every day. That's great, because you know why? You're getting your blood and your lymph flowing, and you're sweating. You sweat, you know, the aluminum comes out in your sweat. Toxic metals come out in your sweat. You create salt levels in your blood that stimulates your skin immune system, which is a separate entity. Like, I didn't know any of this when I was a conventional practicing doctor. Just even say, like, I wanted to detoxify mercury out of my patients in order to lower their blood pressure, and I was told that that is not allowed. You're not, like, well, then I don't want to do this anymore, because I know from a hair mineral analysis and from a chelation test that person is burdened with aluminum and mercury. And I know that both of those things can raise blood pressure. So why wouldn't we want to remove that? The same reason we're not allowed to say vaccines. You know what a multi-billion-dollar industry blood pressure treatment is? And cholesterol treatment is?
Oh, no.
Forget about it. Yeah, I mean, I saw malignant hypertension happen after a tetanus shot in an adult patient of mine. And so that was another one, you know, thing that woke me up. And I was like, oh, gosh, that's good. And then you look up, you see there's other case reports, and then you're told the case reports don't mean anything. Randomized controlled studies. Yeah, so it's like there's frustration at every corner, but I love doing what I do now, and I love the fact, look, it's all great. Like I wouldn't change anything in my life, just put it that way. And I'm really glad I have the background of conventional medicine, but that's like, background of conventional medicine is like year one, really learning about healing and life. It's the very basics, and doctors still need to keep learning, but most conventional doctors are mandated to keep learning, but they're told where they can read to get their credits every year. You can only get your credits from reading this and answering the questions like a good little doggy every year, which I still have to do. But beyond that, when I have my own spare time, you know, like I've learned ozone therapy, I've learned how to use vitamin C, I've learned how to look at the body electromagnetically and use bioresonance, and there's just so much stuff you can do that really helps people and keeps them out of a whole bunch of trouble that they would have gotten into if they went and took allergy medicines and got their tonsils out, or kept on their blood pressure medications and let the inflammation go wild in their body and didn't know anything about how to dampen. Look, most disease comes from inflammation. You know, cholesterol is trying to save you. It's not trying to kill you. The cholesterol is a response to inflammation. It's like your fever is trying to save your life. It's like everything in medicine is about dampening down the symptoms that are trying to save your life. You know? So it's like I look at it and I think, I can't believe I ever actually agreed upon that.
Well, it took a lot of courage to step out of line and speak your mind, and I'm really glad you did, because I hope more will realize that this is what a doctor is supposed to do, and you're not supposed to be a spokesperson for an industry that's pretty sociopathic, you know, which makes some, you know, great strides. Look, there's a lot of amazing orthopedic surgeons and eye surgeons and neurosurgeons. There's a lot of amazing work being done by medicine. But then there's also the pharmaceutical drug company, which when attached to that and to the money people, they want to make more money every time they can. Every quarter, they want to have a bigger quarter, they want a bigger house, they want a bigger jet, and they just keep going. And the way to get money is to get you to take their stuff. It's not to heal you. The way they really make money is to convince you that you're sick.
And if that wasn't the case, we would have more medical freedom than we have, right?
Right.
Because we would have choices, we would have options, we wouldn't be told what we have to do to protect the public.
You shouldn't be shamed for getting better from some other way. That wouldn't be a thing.
I know.
That wouldn't be a thing.
Pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Well, thank you very much for doing what you do and for writing that book, because it was a real eye-opener for me. You know, I had no idea. I had no idea the history of these things. I had no idea the correlations between like when the vaccine was induced and when the death rates had already dropped down. I didn't know all that stuff until I read
Who
your
gave
book.
you the book?
I
Where'd
do
you
not
get it?
remember.
You
I don't
where it came
remember.
from?
Somebody recommended it,
Okay.
and
You read it.
yeah.
Cheers to you.
Well, it's a page turner. You know, it's I listen to it in my car too, and I listen to it in the sauna. It's one of those books that you kind of have to go over it a couple of times just to sort of digest it. And go, wait a minute, wait, no, hold on. Apple cider vinegar they were using to stop people from getting smallpox? Like, what the fuck is that? How is that real? Like, the doctors were saying that they were treating people with smallpox and they didn't worry about getting it because they were consuming apple cider vinegar multiple times a day. And it actually worked.
That's what the reports showed. And even today, apple cider vinegar, you know, it's had a big resurgence in terms of, you know, keeping your gut pH nice and low so that you can digest your food better, which has downstream effects to everything, but it's also a fermented product. It's got a lot of benefit. Not just that, but even on the skin, it's like really great to put on chicken pox and probably smallpox as well. But if I may just direct people to dissolvingillusions.com, because if you just go to Amazon, you're not going to, there's two different versions of the book. There's the original one that you read, and then there's the 10th anniversary version that has 200 extra pages. And we delineate early on what the new pages, what the new chapters are, so you don't have to go read the old stuff if you don't want to.
What do the new 200 pages cover?
It covers tuberculosis. It covers one of the chapters I really love. It's toxic medicine of the past, all the different crazy treatments that I was telling you about. And then I added a whole bunch of the whooping cough because more information came out after 2013. So we added that in. And then we published a second book, which is all full of doctor quotes from 200 years ago. Because people say, why are you the only one? It's like, well, I'm actually not the only one. It's like back then, this was what was recorded from doctors and public health officials, which is probably 1% of what actually was said. And then we have hard to find vaccination tragedies, Royal Commission on Vaccination, timeline, and then we have rare documents at the back that has like the Encyclopedia Britannica, where they hired a very highly decorated, well-known, highly respected doctor to write a chapter on smallpox, and at the end, when he did what I did and basically looked at all the facts, he decimated the vaccine completely, so that you can't really find that very easily anymore. So this one is called the companion book to Dissolving Illusions. But if you can see all the versions, and we've been translated into 8 languages. We're about to be translated into Chinese. But the best resource is dissolvingillusions.com, and it will show you what your options for purchase and where you can purchase the different books. If you want, an alternative press, we have an alternative press for those people that don't want to do Amazon. And all the different languages and the different versions are on there.
All right. Wow. Some dudes can't pull off douchey glasses.
You think he's douchey?
A little bit if I didn't know you, but I know you. You're
right,
not douchey at all, so you wear cool glasses.
Well, these are requests by you, so I can wear what I want.
You've been wearing them a lot. I like them.
Yeah, I do. They kind of, it's like having an Instagram filter for the entire world.
Right.
So everything feels...
Just a little rosy. I had a pair of rose-colored glasses before, and I got it. I was like, oh, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
It is better this
It is
way.
nicer. Yeah, it's like a full... Dude, I need to show you this. So
Okay. What is this?
have a little open of that. So you'll remember that I sent you a photo on iMessage a couple of months ago of a friend of mine who was in Antarctica, and he flew a comedy mothership lighter out to Antarctica. I've been reliably told that lighter was used to smoke weed
In
in
Antarctica?
Yeah, and it was dropped a number of times, so it's touched ancient permafrost.
Fuck yeah.
So
What kind of laws do they have in Antarctica?
I don't know, apparently
Do they
very
have any
liberal.
laws?
Fuck knows. I don't know. I
There's
don't know if
nobody there. Have they established laws?
they were 400 miles in. So this was part of the final experiment which was this attempt to try and disprove flat Earth.
Oh.
He went as a part of that.
Did he bring flat earthers? Is that the deal?
So
Yeah.
4 flat earthers, 4 globe earthers, get flown to Antarctica. It's $35,000 per person.
Oh
And it
my
was,
God.
this guy called Will Duffy put the project together, flew everybody down there.
Did he pay for each person?
Yep. So,
Wow.
I think maybe a couple of people chose to go self-funded, but they were trying to get the open offer to all of the biggest flat Earth influencers, commentators. I don't know what to call them.
How many went?
4 of each. So 4 roundies, 4 flatties. And
Don't you want to see their search histories?
maybe the FBI do. I don't know.
The flat people, I want to see.
So they do this in the middle of our winter, their summer. They observe the sun above the horizon for 24 hours. So there's no explanation, apparently, with most of the models of flat Earth about how the sun could stay above the horizon for 24 hours. So they flew down, they had drones flying in the air, they had 24-hour 360 cameras, they had live stream of iPhones, all of this stuff, and then they had the people that were on the ground. And the guys that were there observed the sun.
Did the flat earthers switch stances?
So 3
did and 1 didn't? Oh, this is drone footage?
Yeah, so the final experiment,
So those are apparently mountaintops.
but they're submerged.
It's just all ice.
That is so fucking hardcore.
Because, there's a bunch of things up there that look like pyramids. And what it really is just an unusual peak of an enormous mountain. Have you seen the Antarctic pyramids? Yeah, you got to go all in on that.
Okay. Fucking.
There's
We have
people that believe
hard launched this episode.
people that believe wild shit about Antarctica. So you know about the direct energy weapon theory, right?
Yes, I did
Yeah.
see that on Sean Ryan's show.
Yes, I did as well. I was like,
That
okay.
guy's fucking really interesting.
Yeah, it's like he sounds really interesting, but if I want to sit him next to Eric Weinstein, you know what I'm saying? Like, is anything that this guy's saying make any sense? Because I've done that before with Eric, with one guy who was a fraudster. I sent him a video and I said, "Tell me if this is gobbledygook or if this
You
is like
use
real physics."
Eric to stress test some
yeah.
guy's ideas.
Of course, he loves it. He loves any sort of intellectual stimulation, and especially if it's like mathematics or physics or something where it's his wheelhouse. And he's great because someone can sound really good to me. They can start quoting thermodynamics,
Finessing you through whatever their problem is.
like chiropractors do. Chiropractors use all these crazy, weird terms for musculature and different insertion points. It's to let you know that they have a comprehensive understanding of the body that's far beyond yours, Chris. And this is the same thing like a lot of fraudsters do, that they'll use enormous language and very verbose, phrases. And it's like they're just trying to get you to think that they're smarter than they are.
Yeah, I think people use sort of complex language and fluency as a proxy for truthfulness and insight.
Yes. And especially if you're dealing with a truly brilliant person, that's what pyramids. Yeah.
Oh, this is just on Google Maps.
Yeah.
Jamie, you've just gone to Google Maps.
Yeah, I didn't want to go to any. I went to the source.
Any kooky websites. But it does look like a pyramid.
Well, all 3.
Yeah. But the reality is that's probably under a couple miles of ice.
Yeah, so this final experiment thing sent the world into a spiral. There's this dude, Jaron Campanella, who was one of the biggest influences, and he said, I saw the sun above the horizon, I think the Earth's round. And he's immediately the Flat Earth Society's just gone into a head spin. They're saying they didn't really go to Antarctica. They went to the Sphere in Vegas, was one of the accusations. They did it at the Sphere in Vegas, and they were tracking it around.
The sphere's not that big, kids.
Yeah, well...
It's not that big.
I
I've
don't
been
know.
there. There's seats everywhere. You would know you're there.
I don't know. They had a bad time. But yeah, that's been pretty wild. Talking of pyramids, dude, this new pyramid shit that's just come out.
Oh, this is insane. Yeah, I was going to send this to you as well, Jamie. I'll send you one of the most comprehensive breakdowns of it on X because it's quite stunning. So apparently, through the use of LiDAR, they have discovered that there are enormous structures underneath the Great Pyramid that go kilometers deep into the earth with coils. So enormous pillars and then these coils. They don't understand what it is because they're just looking at LiDAR images, but whatever this is a uniform structure. There's several pillars, and all of this is like very, very, very weird.
Yeah, 600 meters descending down those cylinders, and then there's more stuff below it, and then there's additional structures inside of it. Yeah, that was crazy.
It's really crazy. There's a guy, Jay Anderson, and he did a breakdown of it. Maybe this would be good. We could play this. It makes a little more sense when someone's explaining it to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, we need somebody that's an expert here, not me and you.
Zawi Hawass, by the way, has said it's nonsense. So I don't know.
Already?
Yes. According to Graham Hancock. This is the wonderful thing about having Graham
I texted
Hancock.
Graham yesterday. I was like, yeah, what's going on with this?
Yeah, so click on that and go full screen, please. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. There are times in life when it's better to make that big purchase, like buying a car for job opportunities or a home to build equity. If you're smart with your money, it could pay off big time in the long run. Those aren't the only things you should be investing in, though. It's just as important that you take care of you and your health. That includes your mental health. And you can be smart with your money here too. Use BetterHelp. Traditional in-person therapy can cost between $100 to $250 a month. But BetterHelp Online Therapy can help you save an average of up to 50% per session. Plus, this March, they're giving you an even bigger discount on starting therapy, one of the biggest I've offered on this show, with 90% off your first week. Therapy can help with a lot of different things. It can help you work through trauma, develop positive coping skills, mindfulness, and more. Everyone can benefit from it. Whatever you want to work on, BetterHelp has you covered. They have a network of over 30,000 therapists, one of the largest online therapy platforms in the world. And since everything is online, it's easy to work it into your schedule. With just a few clicks, you can start a session. Your well-being is worth it. For a limited time, visit betterhelp.com/JRE to get 90% off your first week. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/JRE.
Of a discovery this is.
Dun, dun, dun. I love the music. And geometry, so you know it's real.
Got to appreciate the dramatic intro.
Project Unity.
What has just been announced in relation to the pyramids at the Giza Plateau and the plateau itself is so incredible, so awe-inspiring and narrative-shattering that I have been sitting here for the last hour trying to wrap my head around the implications of what we were just told. So this is pretty much breaking news because the new findings were announced on the 16th of March at a press conference held by the team who was studying the Great Pyramid of Giza with a non-invasive technology that was first developed by Filippo Bionde and Corrado Malanga called synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography.
Fuck, that's a
This
mouthful.
was used to explore the internal
Chiropractor
structure
talk.
of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and this method leverages the analysis of micro movements typically generated by background seismic activity to achieve a high-resolution, full 3D tomographic imagery of the pyramid's interior and subsurface components. The recent findings from deploying this technology are nothing short of mind-blowing, because what's been discovered is that there are huge structures coming down from the base of the pyramid deep into the bedrock, in fact over 600 meters deep, which then connects to structures that extend up to 2 kilometers below the surface of the ground. 2 kilometers. Massive internal structures connected to the base of the pyramid and extending deep, deep down. This is what we know so far.
What does your friend think about it?
Which friend?
The one that you said it's bullshit.
Oh, that's not my friend. That's Zawi Hawass.
Okay.
Zawi Hawass is the head of antiquities in Egypt. He's like the head guy that talks to the archaeologists and gives the official narrative. In the past, he's been extremely hostile to Graham Hancock, but Graham Hancock and him have now become friends.
Oh, yes. I
And
do
they're
know this guy.
coordinating. Graham is a lovely guy. I mean, people that like are enemies with him just need to get to know him and hang out with him. He's a genuine, real human being who's trying to find the truth. He doesn't have fake narratives, and and he's so sensitive too. Like he's so upset. Like when people smear him, like the Atlantis thing, they were trying to say it's a white supremacist idea to look for Atlantis. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Like, we had this guy Flint Dibble on, who in an article, and he was talking about Graham, and he's connecting Graham to white supremacy and all this crazy shit because of the Atlantis theory. It's the way they dismiss
It
Atlantis.
pedestalizes white heritage.
Because some people in the past who have theorized about Atlantis had white supremacist ideas. But also, most people didn't. Like Plato didn't. Like the people that talked about this place, it's in sub-Saharan Africa. I mean, it's like the least white supremacist discovery of all time, as are the pyramids. This is Africa. It's the least white supremacist notion of all time that this incredibly advanced ancient civilization had reached some sort of proficiency that's above and beyond we attribute to them. I think Graham is right, and I think there's a lot of other people that are right too that are chasing this down. And Christopher Dunn had long ago theorized and wrote a book that he believes that the Great Pyramid of Giza is a gigantic power plant. He thinks it generates power, and he has a very like a working theory of why it's built the way it's built that totally coincides with the ability to produce hydrogen, the ability to utilize the rays of space and try to find some way to generate electricity through this.
Yeah, it's the association of other people that we don't like talked about this thing, therefore anybody else that talks about this thing is immediately attached to them. Just seems like a very lazy way to sort of smear people. It's lazy thinking.
It's gross. It's beyond lazy. It's not lazy. It's really cheap. It's like they're cheap insults, and it's also from academia, which is so disappointing. You know, I mean, academia has been so captured by this mind virus of leftism that's just, it's so bizarre to watch the brightest minds and the people that we lean on for rational, reasonable thinking and an objective understanding of the world. We lean on the experts. And when they're calling someone a white supremacist for talking about an advanced society that lived in Africa.
There's a lot of ways that you can put your foot in it. There's this woman, Corey Clark, who sent a survey to every...
Fact of the matter is, and this again, I've got medical references, everything. I can't get away with making stuff up, okay? I have to put a reference for everything. But arsenic causes the exact same spinal pathology that, and fevers and everything. It literally mimics what they were calling polio and polio virus back in the day.
I read this crazy statistic, and I still can't believe it's real, that 95 to 99% of all polio is asymptomatic.
Exactly right. So polio virus is what we call a commensal. Just like you have staph on your skin, strep on your skin, and it actually serves a purpose. It keeps other microbes in check as long as you don't get a cut and have not a good immune system to deal from the inside out. So polio, the reason I can say that polio is a commensal is because, again, there are medical studies that showed that people who dared to get on the edge of some of these wild native tribes down in South America or elsewhere, but in particular I'm talking about a South American tribe called the Javante Indians. So the Indian Health Service got to the edge of it and bargained that they would get some stool and some blood from the tribes so that they could test it for polio. And what they found was 98 to 99% of every person they tested, and it was hundreds of people, had evidence of immunity to all three strains of polio. And they said to them, well, where are all your crippled children? Where's your short legs? Where are the people that died of respiratory failure? And they were like, we don't have any of that problem. So it was well known.
Could it possibly be that whatever you're calling polio evolved and became less powerful over time and more contagious? That does happen with some viruses, right?
Most viruses in nature don't become more problematic as they go through the human system. They become less problematic. Remember
Right.
the whole COVID thing. Like in the beginning, people were getting super, super sick. It wasn't as contagious, but it was more virulent. And as it attenuated into the human bodies, it sort of kind of fizzled out a bit. And then we got the Omicron, which was, less. It was more spreadable, but it was much less pathological. And that's the natural process that happens. So when you're going to have real problems with microbes, they're usually going to be reverse attenuated, meaning made more lethal in a lab, and then they're introduced into the population. And look, I'm not making this up either. 1916, Upper East Side, Manhattan, there was a Rockefeller lab that their specific stated goal was to try to create the most pathological, neuropathological strain of polio possible. And they did that by taking monkey brains and human spinal serum and injecting it into monkeys. And there was a big problem with that, which was released into the public by accident. And the world experienced the worst polio epidemic on record, 25% mortality. That's unheard of. Really freaked the public out, but you can see the epicenter as it fanned out, and as time went on, you never heard of it again. It attenuates as it moves through the body because it's a normal human commensal. It goes back to its normal state when it's in a human, and that's generally what happens. If you have a highly lethal virus and it kills a lot of people, those people are dead. They can't spread anything. So that's kind of a different story if you want to talk about hantavirus or something like that. But as far as polio goes, no, polio was only made more lethal by the stupid things that humans did around it. So make it more invasive into the body, just like you can go do stupid things and then end up with herpes outbreaks and, staph outbreaks. Polio virus is a normal commensal. It used to be until we obliterated it with oral vaccines and replaced it with vaccine strain. But the wild strains are normal human commensals.
So there's vaccine strain polio that just comes from a vaccine and is transmissible?
Absolutely. Today, it would be the oral polio vaccines because they're the live strains, and they're still giving them in pulse fashion all throughout India. They did a campaign a few years back in Israel, and they always say that a nomad came and pooped in the sewage system, and they find it in the sewage system, and they don't want an outbreak to happen, so they treat everybody. So that's today the most common reason to see poliomyelitis disease from a virus. If you test for a virus, they'll usually find a vaccine virus. And that's why today we don't, remember when we were kids, because we're about the same age, I think, they would give us the sugar cube. Maybe you didn't, but I did. I got the sugar cube, and that was the live vaccine. Well, they stopped doing that because after a while, the only cases of polio, and it became so obvious that the only cases of polio we were seeing related to a virus when they tested for poliovirus were vaccine strains, so they started injecting us again. But the early injections caused more paralytic polio than it prevented. And that's the part that people don't understand when they say, what about polio? Because they like you just go, well, there's no more iron lungs, there's no more crippling, there's no more these poor little kids walking around with their casts. Well, that's not true because the iron lung is now called a ventilator. So that's out the window. Transverse myelitis, which there are about 1,300 cases, I think it's a month, diagnosed in one particular, I put a quote in here on that. But transverse myelitis is actually something that would absolutely, it follows the same pathology as polio. It would have been called polio back in the day. So we still have polio that we had in 1953, because in 1953, all you had to have to be diagnosed as polio. Anyone could diagnose you, just one examination with one set of muscles being paralyzed. There was no time frame on it. There was no testing done on it. And then it was considered a public service to do it because then you were eligible for funding.
So what do they call it again? Can you say that word again? Myelitis?
Poliomyelitis is the definition of the actual pathology. So it basically means inflammation of the gray matter of your spinal cord. That's what polio in Greek, poliomyelitis. It means gray matter inflammation, poliomyelitis. Poliomyelitis is what happens in the body. Okay, you want to talk about what causes it, then okay, maybe in some cases the poliovirus causes it. And all the other things we just mentioned, arsenic, lead arsenate, calcium arsenate, injections, tonsillectomies, huge cause of some of the worst cases of poliomyelitis. And in fact, injections and tonsillectomies and unnecessary surgeries were put on hold during years where the epidemics were the worst. So that's just proof that even the surgeons knew that.
Why is it effective?
Okay, so if you happen to have poliomyelitis circulating in your body that's not just sitting in your intestines and say it made its way into your body, because things can go from your intestines into your body, and you happen to have it close to a nerve that's up, say, around your throat, and then you go and take the tonsils out, then what you've done is you've given that access to the blood compartment, the lymph compartment, and the brain stem, which is right there, local. So those are the people that would get what was called bulbar polio, which is the ones that put you on a ventilator, and it's highly lethal. It's the worst kind of polio to get, bulbar polio. And it was very well known to have been coincident with tonsillectomies. Not only that, but tonsillectomies changed the structure and antibodies and the immunity that occurred in the throat, and changed it for the worse, not for the better.
Do you think they're unnecessary? Or is there some times when people have to get their tonsils removed, or is it just a nonsense practice?
Okay, so again, it's not just a cut and dry answer, because let's just say that anyone who's ever brought their child to me because the tonsils were touching and they were snoring has not had to have a tonsillectomy. Now, does that mean that a tonsillectomy won't solve that problem where you're snoring and your kid's maybe not oxygenated? No, if you let it go that long, probably you're going to need a tonsillectomy. But I've seen so many cases reverse. It's a very easy thing to do, but as doctors, we're not taught about all the things that you were talking about earlier, the natural remedies, but just simply gargling with a solution of sodium ascorbate, vitamin C, can make a huge difference, because tonsils are they're like porous golf balls, if you want to think of them that way. They've got pits in them, and so food you eat and bacteria and pus can build up, but if you just start rinsing the outsides of them and start nourishing the body from the inside and getting rid of things that the kid might be allergic to, which almost every kid's going to eat if the parent doesn't know better, they can make a remarkable difference in these kids that have these huge tonsils. So I think that I think everything else should be done first before taking out the tonsils if there's time, because I'd say 95 to 99% of the time you can prevent that child from needing the tonsils removed.
Before we go to smallpox, I want to talk about this because you just brought it up. One of the things that Brett Weinstein has explained to me is that aluminum is when the concept is that giving someone a shot with aluminum in it and triggering an immune response, if they're eating certain foods during that time, they can then develop an allergy to those foods, like certain people with peanuts and various things. Because imagine your dad's getting that close to put in jail for bullshit for the rest of his life. Like if he got put in jail for 25 to life, he's dead. He's dead, dies in jail. He's gonna get no food, he's gonna be no nutrition, no sunlight, depression, intense fucking anxiety. You're in jail. You're dead. He's 80 years old. He's not gonna last to 105 in jail.
There was a video from Forbes recently that got 1 million plays in a day, talking about Trump getting like bopped on the nose by a boom
Yeah,
mic.
but that lady.
Yeah, by a little boom mic. He just a little boop on the nose.
Yeah.
I have to say, I have such fucking news politics fatigue already. We're what, 2 months into the sort of presidency, and it is the velocity of bullshit.
Stupidity.
If you can get 1 million plays in a day because Trump got bopped on the nose by a fucking boom mic, it just the appetite is it seems endless for it. It just feels it's exhausting. I'm kind of having to check out. And I know that people say, oh, well, it's a luxurious position. You don't need to pay attention to politics. It's a luxurious position for you to be in. People at the bottom, they do need to pay attention to politics. It's an interesting stat, because actually the most educated, wealthiest people are the ones that spend the most time consuming news and talking about politics. It's the people at the bottom rung of the ladder that don't. So that's not true. I'm just fucking exhausted. I'm so...
You're allowed to be exhausted. It's ridiculous. Newsweek wrote an article about how one of the names of one of our podcast guests, who's a good friend of mine, Michael Costa, his name was misspelled accidentally
on the feed.
on the feed.
On
And
the
so
Rogan.
Newsweek...
Is that you, Jamie?
It wasn't even misspelled. I don't know. It was miscapitalized. It's the
The
second
defen-
letter had a capitalization too on
yeah.
accident, and I don't
The
know.
defense rests its case here.
It wasn't even misspelled, right. It was M-I, Michael Costa. Like me, Kyle Costa or something.
Okay.
There's a headline.
It's a fucking article in Newsweek.
You ever think that your career would result in you having typos for a headline, Jamie?
Newsweek.
I don't even know which ones we've missed. I'm sure there's been other ones. That's just the first one.
100%. What happens? It happens. People make mistakes. You're typing things in.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's an article that we're being called out for a typo.
Must be
That's
a
an
fucking
art, but it's just anything for clicks, man.
slow
Anything.
week for news.
When it comes to college basketball and March Mania, one thing is for sure, nothing's for sure. Upsets,
buzzer beaters, Cinderella's advancing, top seeds going home early. It's all gonna happen. Bet the unexpected, every upset, every day with DraftKings Sportsbook. With live betting, exclusive content, promos, and parlays, DraftKings is the ultimate college basketball destination for March. First time? Here's something special just for you. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Bet the unexpected with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code ROGAN. That's code ROGAN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Anything for clicks.
That was something that I noticed, a trend that I've noticed over the last couple of years. Legacy media is really struggling to garner attention itself. It seems like fewer and fewer people are listening to it. We saw that over the last election. You know, it seems to me like the best way that legacy media can gain traffic is to talk about independent media.
Yeah.
How many times are we seeing headlines about Andrew Huberman or about the right-wing manosphere pipeline and how it's getting people to do this? Or the other side, like, why is there not a Joe Rogan of the left? Like, you know, whatever the headline is, more and more the way that legacy media is able to achieve traffic is only in reference to independent media.
Yes.
So then, as opposed to us being downstream from them, they're now downstream from us.
Yeah, and anything masculine is right wing. Anything. You cannot be masculine. Like, you cannot be interested in physical fitness, anything.
It's a pipeline to being right wing.
Yes. You can't like fast cars.
Nope.
You're not allowed to. You're not even allowed to like Teslas anymore, which are
Misogynist.
the fastest cars.
Yep.
Yeah, you're a misogynist. You're probably racist. Maybe a Nazi. I'm going to put a swastika in your car just to let everybody know. There was a really fucking stupid graph that someone put up of how right-wing social media and new media people
That was the Media
dominate.
Matters study. Yeah. This is
And
interesting.
I was
Jamie,
at the
can you try
top
and
of the
find that?
list. I was at the top of the list, and I was like, I feel like the way Caitlyn Jenner must have felt like when she won Woman of the Year. Like, it's so quick. I got to the top of the list. I'm not even right-wing. Just because I support Trump, I support him over the rest of the fucking nonsense that was going on when you're trying to push through someone without even a primary.
Here it is.
This is it. I'm number one, bitch. It's kind of funny. Like, they're putting Theo Vaughn in
Lex
there.
Friedman.
Yeah, that's Lex Friedman. That's hilarious to put him in there. Who else they have in there that's ridiculous?
Piers Morgan.
Well, Piers Morgan is kind of like right-leaning, I think.
Like
but,
right.
But I think he's pretty reasonable. I think he's far more of a centrist.
Kill Tony 3.5. I still don't understand how that's a political show.
It's not, but Tony, was at the White House or the
Flagrant 2.8. Yeah.
Flagrant is not a right-wing show, you fucking
I
idiots.
have a bunch of red dots too with no names on them, which is in a full list.
You're allowed to. Shut up, Jamie. Stop being.
I managed to thread the needle of avoiding this.
You're gonna get on there now.
yeah, well.
They're gonna put you on now. Jamie, those red ones are real. Just shut up.
I don't know
No,
why
they're
they-
real. They're all real. There's a couple of blue ones that are real too.
The name, I don't know.
Fuck the name. They're too little. to
Too
get a
small.
name.
No one cares. No one gives a
Yeah,
fuck.
it's hilarious. It's
Yeah,
very funny.
What do you think of the, or have you got a proposed reason for why this, is it just a judgment criteria that they're judging shows that aren't right-wing as right-wing? Or is it genuinely that for some reason the left is struggling to make progress in independent media?
Well, they're struggling to make progress in independent media for sure. They're trying to figure out why. They're trying to figure out why what they are calling right-wing. I think if you looked at all my positions, I think way more of them are left-wing than right-wing.
What are the left-wing positions that you still hold?
Well, the big one is having some sort of a social safety net. I was on welfare when I was a kid. My family was on food stamps. We were fucking poor as shit. And I remember
that helping us a lot. We had food, where I don't know what we would be doing if we did. I mean, we were in a bad place, and there's social safety nets for people. My family got out of that, and my stepfather and my mother wound up doing well. They did really great, and they got out of debt and bought a house and great job and the whole deal. But when I was a little boy, we were fucked. And I think social safety nets are very important for people. It's very important for society. If you care about people, you care about the whole of society, you don't want people starving when there's ways to develop government programs to make sure people have food. And I think this idea of pull them up by their bootstraps is horseshit. Some people don't have boots. They don't have straps. They don't have nothing. They're fucked. They're fucked from the moment they were born. They were born into a bad family environment, in a bad neighborhood, and crime and gangs and drugs, and it's not even playing field.
Where are you at with healthcare?
I think healthcare 100% should be socially funded. I think that Medicare and Medicaid, having programs where people who are hurt can get an operation and it's not going to bankrupt them for the rest of their life, is another thing that I think society should be a part of our agreement to take care of each other as a community, that we chip in money for what people would think of as socialist positions. And I always bring up the fire department, because the fire department is one of the best examples that everybody sort of agrees. It's a socialist sort of thing. You give your tax dollars, the tax dollar supports the fire department fairly puts out fires for everybody. They don't not put out your fire if you don't have any money.
Yeah.
It's not like they don't, the fires don't.
It's such a good example, but when you compare that to the way that medical access is done, at least in this country.
But I also believe in competition. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I want my doctor to be a bad motherfucker who drives a Mercedes. I want my doctor to like be really good. I want him to be an artist. You know, I want to go to the guy who fixes the Lakers' knees. You know, that's the guy you want. You want that guy who has a nice watch, and he lives in a nice house, and he kicks ass, and he knows how to fucking fix people really well. He's the best at it. And you go to him, and you get an operation, and you're fucking golden. That's what you want. When you want competition, because competition inspires excellence. You know, being rewarded for your hard work is a giant incentive for people to get amazing at things. And you need that. You need that too. But there's also a lot of very good doctors who would be very happy to do something that helps the overall greater good of the community. Just like you have really good criminal defense attorneys that are, you know, assigned to you if you're getting unjustly tried, and you want a really good one that can help you. You know, there's state-appointed attorneys that are just good people that want to help people. You know, Bill Murray was talking about his daughter. His daughter does that. There's room for that with the amount of money that we spend on so many things that we all agree are fucked. And maybe some of that could be freed up with some of this USAID money that they're pulling. I mean, there's nothing wrong with giving people health care. Like, if you know anybody that's been injured and was bankrupt because they didn't have insurance, and then they had to get some crazy operation, and now they have this enormous debt, and they wind up going bankrupt, or they're getting chased down for the money for the rest of their life. It's horrible.
It's the number one cause of bankruptcy in America, medical debt. I mean, coming from the UK, where we've got the NHS, it feels fucking barbaric.
It
really does feel barbaric. I remember I went to New Orleans, and I was getting this great ghost tour on an evening time. It's like fun tourist shit to do in New Orleans.
I do those.
And the guide was so good. My mother was a Wiccan, and I don't know if that was true, but the tale was lovely. Anyway, and he was telling me I've got a chipped wisdom tooth, and my girlfriend got into a car wreck the other day, and he basically said, he was explaining to me about how you can get bankrupted by this stuff. He's like, if you get hit by a car and you don't have insurance, you better fucking walk it off. Because if you don't, that could be the end of, essentially the beginning of the end of your life. And that really, I mean, that was 6-7 years ago now, and it's still like, that was the most haunting thing about the fucking ghost tour, was him telling me about the medical debt. And then I think the reaction to the United Health CEO killing as well, for me, somebody who didn't fully understand how many of the claims are denied. I think that there was an increase by about 30% in denial of claims over only the most recent period. And I just thought, guy shoots person, typically the guy that shoots them is in the wrong, and the reaction on the internet just, I wasn't ready for it. And it really sort of taught me this undercurrent of dissatisfaction that almost everybody in America has with the healthcare system.
Yeah, I think it's a quiet epidemic. I think there's been a lot of people massively affected by it, and they're just steaming, just sitting there seething, just angry.
Waiting for some righteous
Yeah.
person to come in and do
But then you see
retribution.
the fucking revolving door between the FDA and the pharmaceutical drug corporations, where these people leave, and then all of a sudden they have these amazing jobs at pharmaceutical drug companies, and they're making millions of dollars. Like, how is that legal? How is this whole thing legal? Like, when you realize that doctors are incentivized to medicate people, they're financially incentivized to give people certain medications, whether it's vaccines, they get bonuses if they vaccinate more than 60% of their clients, and they lose those bonuses if people don't get vaccinated. There's like a lot of creepy shit that's involved in medicine.
The FDA ban on compounded Ozempic started yesterday.
Oh. It's
So-
a ban.
So,
So you have to get it from the big companies.
correct. Brigham taught me about this. I didn't understand how it works. If there's a shortage of a drug, compounding pharmacies are kind of allowed to just bypass patents in some way. It's like you can produce it and you can make it cheaper and more widely available because the supply chain's fucked or something like that. And yesterday,
That would be a good thing for society.
well, to make more drugs more widely available for cheaper.
If it's good, if it's a very important pharmaceutical drug, it could save people's lives.
Of course.
Imagine not letting compound pharmacies make it for people that can't get it.
Yeah, or can't afford it, or don't have the insurance for
Yeah.
it. So yeah, I mean that came into effect. I think tirzepatide got popped yesterday, and then partway through April, semaglutide is going to go as well.
Yeah, that's all just eliminating competition, right?
Well, we need to think, all of the people that are using these drugs, that are losing weight with them, whatever, we need to think about who the real sort of people suffering from this situation are, who are the stock owners of telehealth companies. If you own Hims or whatever,
Yeah.
the stocks decline by a lot. But dude, I've been thinking so much about Ozempic recently, and I think the introduction of Ozempic proves how much of a scam the body positivity movement was all along. You look at the Golden Globes and all of the women that were supporting their bigger sisters, as soon as there was an easy route
They
to
look
being able
gaunt.
to being able to become a skeleton, they look like this. Look like this guy here.
They all get those sucked in cheeks and the eye sockets suck in.
Yeah.
It looks really creepy.
It just shows how flimsy your principles are, that it was easier for you to say, I can't win this particular game, therefore the game is rigged. Like, if you can't get what you want, you have
Right.
to teach yourself to want what you can get, and then proclaim to everybody else that they should get it too.
Yes.
And the Golden Globes, you just got these fucking skeleton motherfuckers walking around. And I mean, women of Hollywood are now facing the same dilemma that dudes who go to the gym have had for decades. Because it's pointless losing weight naturally. Why would you lose weight naturally? Because everybody's going to accuse you of having used Ozempic in any case. Same thing as a dude. If you gain weight as a guy and you get jacked, really jacked, if you really discipline yourself, multiple years, progressive overload, time under tension, hitting your protein goals, getting enough sleep, what your friends and the people of the internet will say is, yeah, dude, easy if you take trenbolone. And it's the exact same. So what is the incentive for anybody to lose weight naturally? Now, and apart from, I have some concerns about the drugs and the side effects and so on and so forth, socially, there is no incentive for you to lose weight naturally. Remember when Adele lost all that weight? In the before time, she did it in the before times, dude.
Right.
She did it
hard.
Yeah, she did it the fucking, yeah, exactly.
hard way.
Yeah, exactly. Extreme difficulty.
Yeah.
But yeah, now
She's hot.
do you remember when she did that Jamaica thing? She came out and she had all of her hair like done like this.
Yeah.
But there's this odd like Pascal's wager that you have to make where you think I can either lose weight normally or without assistance. It's going to be more difficult, and people are going to accuse me of using Ozempic in any case, or I can just take it and it'll be easier, and they'll accuse me of it. Nothing changes.
Yeah. I'm in favor of Ozempic for people that are morbidly obese. I think anything that can get you on the path. And I think if you can combine that, if you can say, okay, this is what I'm doing, so I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to start an exercise program. And then you wind up losing 30, 40 pounds, you feel better, you look better. If you can continue this exercise program, you've at least put a healthy thing in your life along with Ozempic. I think that's critical, because also that can mitigate some of the negative effects of. One of the things that we're seeing is that people are losing a lot of muscle mass and a lot of bone mass. As much as 30% of the weight that people are losing is muscle and bone. And that, I think, can probably be mitigated with regular strength training. You know, you're only hearing about this from people that aren't strength
Do
training.
not have a fitness regime.
Right,
So
right, but which is the majority of these people that need this drug.
that's how they got fat in the first place.
Right,
Yeah, exactly.
right.
So Johan Hari did a really great book on this. You had Johan
Yes,
on a bunch of
yeah,
times.
yeah.
Wrote this book called Magic Pill, and he's got just a really nice takeaway. He says, if you're under BMI of 30 and you're trying to lose weight, go fuck yourself. Like, if you're between 30 and 35, there's probably a value judgment you need to make. And if you're over 35 BMI, the cost-benefit analysis seems to sort of work in your favor.
Yeah.
People are losing more muscle and bone mass from using Ozempic than you would typically if you were not using that. But I think that that's just largely a selection criteria for the sort of people that are using Ozempic to help them lose weight, that they're not having to, they're so heavily calorie restricted that they don't need to have a fitness program.
Right.
They don't have to really change their diet. I learned this, Johan taught me this thing, it's super interesting. Gastric band surgery, after people have that, the suicide risk is pretty high. And sometimes it's because of these surgeons that leave the gauze in, or like leave a scalpel or like a fucking cigar end in. There's complications that can happen physically. But the other thing that happens is these people used food as their coping mechanism for how they would feel better.
Right.
And their ability to eat and their appetite has gone away, but their psychological issues have not.
And they don't have a coping mechanism.
They've no longer got this outlet.
Right. And then there's the issue also, you're not going to feel as good because your body's not absorbing nutrients correctly. You're missing some of your stomach. You know, it's like your stomach fills up quicker because they removed part of it. Like that can't be good just for overall metabolic health. Like you've diminished your body's ability to break down food. That just can't be good. And there's other ways to do it. There's other ways to do it. It's like, there's a gambling term that you got to get better the same way you got sick. So like say if you and I were playing pool and we're playing for $100 a game and you're up 5 games, you're up $500 and I say next game for $500 and you go, no, you got to get better the same way you got sick.
Oh, that's interesting.
You can't just win one game and now you're even. And they're like, come on, what are you, pussy? You scared? Like, no. That's not how this works.
You lost one at a time. You're not getting it all back.
You went down a dark road and you missed a lot of shots, and now you're fucked. And I'm not going to let you off the hook with one easy thing. I might do that if it's like, okay, you put up 1,000 and I'll put up 300. We'll see that.
You stack it in mind. Yeah, if you reflect in the odds where we're at financially at the moment.
Yeah, you got to jack it in my favor where I'm willing to make a risk.
Yeah, it's a strange. I think another thing with Ozempic, I have this theory that I think thin people are more prejudiced against people that use Ozempic than fat people are. So typically you would say, stay with me.
I think you're right.
So you would have imagined, and this did happen, some areas of the body positivity movement said that it was denying their right to exist, that it was like erasure, that you're losing your bigger brothers and sisters, I don't know. But they're not actually threatened in the same way as in weight people are. So I'm aware that losing weight through Ozempic is not the same as getting in shape, especially if you don't do the health and fitness regime, if you don't do the resistance exercise, you end up gaunt, skinny fat, jowls, big cheeks, all that stuff. But the signal of being in shape, let's just take that as being in shape, right? Like a normal BMI. The signal of being in shape is usually a reliable indicator of what you've done to have to get there.
Right.
Disciplined, reliable, able to do hard things, self-motivated, consistent, stick to a routine, conscientious, industrious, all of these things.
Yeah.
So you look at somebody who's in shape and you think, I can infer from your body a lot of things about who you are beyond just your body. I actually think that this is one of the huge benefits that most people don't realize about getting in shape if they want to attract a partner or whatever. It's sure, the body looks great when you take the clothes off, but what does it signal about your personality, about your underlying values and what you do? Now, the problem with the introduction of easier routes to being in shape is that it's completely derogated the signal. The signal is now no longer reliable.
Right.
Because previously the signal said,
You sent your servant into the city. Your servant could bring you home something lovely from the city. Yeah.
This is not the picture that was painted when we were children of what society was like. You know?
No, we were told that this vaccine was so important and it was so effective that we don't need it anymore. I actually ended up with one when I was very young.
I think what we're talking about when we're saying the conditions, that these conditions aren't known to most people, and that these conditions coincide with these diseases, and it's probably not just a correlation.
So the conditions correlate with the diseases, and the conditions also correlate with the death rates. Okay, and so there were many of the diseases that we're talking. Say just diarrhea. Do you know diarrhea killed more people in the Civil War than bullets?
Yeah.
And lots of other wars. Diarrhea. Diarrhea can be caused by lots of things. Nothing that we vaccinate for, essentially. Well, I mean, today there's rotavirus, but that wasn't a thing then. It was more, typhus and things like that. So, and cholera.
They're getting it from water.
Yeah, that's what that would have been, because they would be out, in the bush or the trenches, drinking what they could. So, redirect me again. We were just talking about so the diseases that there were never any vaccines for, we see the death rate come down at the same exact avalanche as the diseases that we did vaccinate for. And in some cases, there's a little blip when the vaccine comes up and things get worse for a bit and then come back down. So again, the point of the book was just interpreting the data that's existed for a really long time, vital statistics throughout the world as to the decline in death rate. In some cases, the disease rates went down too, but the most important thing was the death rate, because that's what people did. Your baby could die, you have to have a vaccine, right? It's not your baby could have a rash.
Right.
So different diseases have different severities and different solutions and different ways to treat them so that they never have to present to a hospital. But like you said, back in those days, there wasn't, the pharmacies basically had your mercurials, arsenicals, if you were lucky, some homeopathics. That was pretty much medicine back then until aspirin was invented, which was probably one of the reasons why the 1918 flu looked as bad as it did, because they were giving people up to 10 grams of aspirin a day, which can cause pulmonary edema in a healthy person.
So what was the logic behind the arsenics and the mercurials? Like, how did that become an approach that they used for medicine?
Well, I don't know, actually. Don't know the answer to why they started doing that.
Those are two really bad things.
Well, I'll tell you how they prescribed it is they would say, give 1 grain until emesis occurs. That means throwing up. So give it until a person throws up, because back then they believed that if they could get you to throw up, they thought if bringing stuff out of your body was good. Bloodletting, throwing up, and diarrhea. And so that was the threshold for giving a lot of these drugs. So they thought, instead, how can you get someone to have diarrhea as a doctor? Okay, well, we can give them mercurials and arsenicals. That will do the trick. And so they thought that they could purge the body by doing
Arsenic
that.
in medicine, past, present, and future.
Yeah.
Okay. Paradoxically, is a therapeutic agent that has been used since ancient times for the treatment of multiple diseases. So does it actually cure some stuff in small doses?
Well, what good is the
Active
cure if you have a
ingredient.
dead patient or a patient with neuropathy? You haven't really cured anyone, have you?
Right. Well, isn't it dose dependent, right? It says arsenic trioxide, the active ingredient in traditional Chinese medicine, was shown to produce dramatic remission of acute you can say that word, ma'am.
Comylocytic leukemia.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Similar to
But
the
then they
effect of
decided that vitamin A could do it, okay?
right, trans-retinoic acid. So retinoic
Yeah.
acid, which is vitamin A.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
There
Well,
are
I
still
would
a lot
say
of
vitamin A is
poisons
probably
used in
less
oncology.
risky than
What's that?
I'd say it's less risky for vitamin A than
Yeah, a little bit.
arsenic.
I mean,
But is
that's
it a
probably
different
slightly
kind
different.
of arsenic? Slightly different kind of arsenic,
Well-
or a lower dose of arsenic? Is that?
They measured things in grains back then, so I guess that's probably maybe like a milligram, something like that.
But the Chinese medicine's probably the root of it, right? Why they thought it was medicine.
Could be. But
And maybe
you-
they used the wrong arsenic, or that's possible.
I guess you start trying the things that you have, right?
Mercury's a crazy one, though. Haven't they known that's poison forever? Like,
Wasn't it in the same thing or no?
I don't know.
It's a fascinating metal because it's liquid. It's a liquid metal. A
Yeah.
lot of people played with it when they were kids. I know some of the smartest people I know talk about how they played with the mercury ball when they were little.
Yikes.
And it's in thermometers, obviously. It works quite well. There's a use for mercury. But the reason that it's put into it was actually in the MMR vaccines and some of the flu vaccines is because it's an antimicrobial. It'll kill everything. So maybe that was part of that, 'cause it will kill everything. It will kill the microbes in a petri dish. So in order to, because this is one of the realities of vaccine manufacture, which I want your audience to understand, is that vaccines, while it might look like just a clear liquid, in order to make a vaccine, you have to have either a cow that you put ulcers on and scrape the pus off, or you can evolve it as it had evolved to maybe getting some tumorous cells that came out of a Cocker Spaniel's kidney or monkey balls or monkey kidneys, and you plate those cells out, and then you inoculate it with what you want to grow to put in your vaccine later. But in order to keep those cells alive, you have to put animal blood on it, you have to put different nutrients on top of it, you have to put antibiotics, kanamycin, things like that related to the COVID. Here, mercury. Okay, so in the end, you can make sure when you have your final product that if you put a little bit of mercury in there, that it's less likely for any of the fungus or the spores or the bacteria or the adventitious viruses that you didn't know about that were there before will be in your final product. Wonderful. So you have a product now that you can be not completely sure has any of these deadly microbes, but now has mercury, which the only places it's actually okay to have on the planet, mercury, is in vaccines, your tooth, or toxic landfill. So if you were to drop a vaccine at a vaccine clinic onto the floor, the hazmat guys were coming. You're not allowed to just pick it up if it's a mercury-containing vaccine. Hazmat people have to come and take that away. Yet we're okay to take, a set portion of that vial and inject it into, a child, a 3-month-old child. How does that work?
It doesn't sound logical. And
6
then
month old, actually.
there was also the issue with the different types of mercury, right? Is it methyl and ethyl? The two
Methyl and
different?
ethyl.
Yeah.
Apparently ethyl is good and methyl is bad, according to Paul Offit, senior vaccine scientist. But the fact of the matter is, once mercury is methylated, and like fish can methylate mercury and they can get rid of it. Once we demethylate mercury, it's in us until you do something called chelation, where you can put a chemical into the body that can grab onto it, pull it out through your urine. Otherwise, you're stuck with it. So, in my opinion, all mercury is bad. Shouldn't be put into humans. Shouldn't be in our food sources. Shouldn't be in our environment, except for in the natural. Look, you can even find uranium in nature, right? It's what people do to it to concentrate it and how they use it that becomes a problem.
Wasn't the issue that one of them, I don't know, it's methyl or ethyl mercury, leaves the body quicker?
Yes, it's ethyl mercury that leaves the body quicker because methyl is a chemical that gets put onto it naturally, and apparently, I'm not an expert on mercury poisoning, but apparently methyl mercury we don't have the ability to excrete, but ethyl mercury we do. Yeah.
But wasn't there also an issue that it crosses the blood-brain barrier?
Well, anytime there's inflammation, anything can cross the blood-brain barrier. It's the aluminum that we really know crosses the blood-brain barrier, and that's still in vaccines today. And anyway, we get into blood-brain barrier if you want to. That's a whole other story. But yeah, so mercury, obviously, it can get into the brain. It's found in the brain. It can get into your adrenals and your other glands and important areas of your body. And even the thing is that even at such low levels can cause problems. No neurotoxin. Has no place for circulating or being deposited in the human body in any form.
But isn't it fascinating that they've done such a good job promoting this that people are going to get outraged at what you're saying? They've done such a good job.
Welcome to my life.
And you've got a lot of courage. I don't want to commend you for that, because writing that book and being here talking about it takes a lot of courage. And it's from regular people who want to believe the vaccine. They're scarier than anybody. The people that are just rabid vaxxers, and they stand for science like they're the warriors for science, and they get very aggressive about it. And they don't even want to breach the subject. They don't even want to look at it. Because the more you look at it, if you're a logical, rational person without like a deep-seated ideology attached to vaccines, and you just looked at the reality of it, you just go, what is this? Like, how did you trick people into injecting, how many a year now for kids? What is it?
In the 70s, I believe we're in the 70s.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And then you want to demonize anybody who says anything about vaccine side effects. You are the craziest of kooks. They come down you with the hardest publicity campaign. It's so transparent. You see it coming a mile away, and you're still shocked by how blatant it is. And no one wants to look at the actual issue itself. No one wants to say, like, well, is she right? If you read your book, you go, is she right? Well, if you're right, and I think you're right, like, we've been lied to. And we've been tricked into thinking that this is all settled science. And that's what's infuriating. It's not that it's anti-science. It's like, this is not science. What you guys are doing is not science. You've subverted, you've perverted that notion. And you've done it in an amazing way. I mean, hats off to you. What they've done in terms of like brainwashing people to believe that all this is, it's not just necessary, but it saved millions of lives, and anybody that is against it in any way, shape, or form is a quack, and you should be deplatformed and never talked about again, and polite public society and cocktail parties, you'll be shunned.
Yeah. Well, the way they were able to get away with it is 226 years worth of propaganda, because the fact of the matter is that ever since the beginning of smallpox vaccines, there have been vaccine deaths. The reason, and look, we've added, I brought you a special copy. This is a limited edition. In the 10th anniversary edition, we added 200 pages. We added a chapter called The White Plague. The White Plague is also tuberculosis. Tuberculosis was a side effect of the smallpox vaccine. Tuberculosis rates were rampant. And in fact, the inventor of the smallpox vaccine, his child died of tuberculosis, and so did his 2 test subjects that he used. And it was well known to follow smallpox. Lots of doctors talked about it. But in about 2 or 3 years after the vaccine was accepted in England, you hear doctors speaking out about it, cursing the day they ever agreed to do it to people, to children, to anybody. And so what happened is that the government came down harder and started making it mandatory and would take your furniture away and started intimidating the doctors. And that's an age-old thing as well. And I experienced it. And any doctor that's ever stepped out of line and said something bad about vaccines will either be intimidated.
Yeah, you can't always be historically accurate, I guess.
That's what I got so far. Cast and
Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson, nice.
Absolutely
John Bernthal.
stacked. Did you see Matt Damon do Schultz's trailer?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So fucking good.
Yeah.
I have to say, man, that Schultz's most recent special is one of the best things. I got to shout out Andrew Schultz. Like, that was one of the best things that I've seen in so long. I thought it was fucking phenomenal. It made me cry when I saw it live here in Austin. Twice. I cried twice.
Wow.
And then I saw it again before I had him on the show the other week. I was like in the back of an Uber and like trying to not let the taxi driver see that I'm welling up. He's talking about, his wife says something to him where she says, the thing is, honey, you don't have problems. We have problems. I was like, oh, it was just so lovely. And him talking about his experience trying to get pregnant and all of that stuff caused me to go and get sperm count done. I'm not trying to get anybody pregnant at the moment, but
How old are you?
37.
Do you have a number where you'd like to start breeding?
Breathing. Within the next few years, I want to start a family soon.
Do
But
you have a gal?
yeah, at the moment. Yeah, I do.
How long you been with this gal?
6 months?
Did you ever go on a trip with her?
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta go on a long trip with her.
Well, I think that 6 months might be a little bit early just yet.
No, if you want to find out what's up, you gotta go on a trip.
Oh, you mean to work out compatibility?
Yeah, you gotta see how they deal with travel, how they deal with stress, how they deal with restaurant. What is it? Can they keep up their act when you're with them 24 hours a day for weeks at a time?
It was when I actually did do a week-long trip in Jamaica and had to go from Montego Bay to Kingston twice to get my visa renewed. Now, traveling through Jamaican traffic with somebody will really tell you an awful lot.
Yeah.
So, you're talking about like a Navy SEAL hell week
Yeah.
of trying to throw difficult shit in there. So that
Well,
worked.
you just need to see what people are like when they're with you all the time. Because people put on a show.
They put on a show. You're a handsome guy. You're successful. They want to impress you. They want to pretend they're something that you would love. And then maybe they have ideas of morphing you, changing you over time. You know, you get a car. Like, it's pretty good, but I like to update the engine, like do some shit to the tires, maybe change the way the interior looks. You start changing it, and then all of a sudden Chris is wearing different clothes. What's going on, Chris?
Gotta be careful. Put these glasses on, that's why it happened. But yeah, I decided to go and get a sperm count thing done. You know what a varicocele is?
No.
Okay, dude, this is something that I think every single guy needs to know about. So it's basically when you go through puberty, the way that the veins sort of form that blow heat off from your balls, they can form in a way where they just don't get rid of the heat that efficiently.
Your balls good.
Not enough. And it's in 15% of men, so it's super, super common, but 50% of men that go to urologists have got this. And I go in, and I've had these balls my entire life. I've had these balls, thank you. They're not transplants. I've had these balls since puberty, and I found out at the age of 36, oh, you've got a medium varicocele. So the mad thing about this is, you'll know this, if you take testosterone, it plummets your sperm count. So typically testosterone and sperm kind of work against each other in that kind of a direction. This is the one thing where if you get it fixed, both go up. So the mean change in testosterone is 180 points.
How do they fix it?
They just, it's surgery. It's a small surgery where they do an incision in your groin and they just fix the vasculature.
Balls and surgery are two things that I don't like together. I like both of them. I don't think they should be.
Never the twain shall meet. Yeah.
Ball surgery is scary. Do you know that if you get you can get a dick transplant, like you lose your dick, but you cannot get ball transplants. You know why?
No.
Because you will carry the DNA of the original person. So, say if I die and you get my balls, you will have my DNA. You will have my kids.
So why can't I have your balls?
Well, you could if I gave you permission, maybe, but it's unethical.
Why don't we swap one ball each? It's like tossing a coin.
See whose kids make it.
Oh, it
and
was
then
Lefty
we do a
that
DNA
bit.
test.
Lefty
God
was the
damn
one
it,
that
all
came
my
out that
kids are
day.
Chris's. What the fuck?
We'd come out speaking
That
British.
would be fun if we both, like, if you had an elective surgery to swap balls with a good buddy. Like, I love you so much, I want to swap a ball with you.
Yep.
We both
We
swap
just don't know which one it's going to be
You
today.
never know. It's like, because I had a gay couple that were friends that lived down the street from me, and they had a kid with a surrogate, and they shot their jizz into a cup and mixed it up. So they didn't know who's going to be the one who has the kid.
Wow.
Yeah.
2 men, 1 cup.
They had to do it twice, too, because the first time the lady kept the kid. They
What?
paid her, they did the whole thing, at the end of it she decided she wanted to keep the baby.
Dude, the ethics of surrogacy are really interesting.
It's weird. It's a weird thing. You're hiring someone to have your baby for you, and then wealthy people are doing it so they don't get their cooch stretched out.
That was the Kardashian approach, right?
Allegedly, that's why she did it. Well, maybe she just didn't want to carry babies anymore. She had a couple of them the normal way, and then, but it's like so much of what the child experiences in the womb, it like leads to this, I would imagine, this bonding thing with the woman. The baby's inside of you. You remember feeling the baby inside of you. It grows inside of you. Then it comes out of you, and you raise it, and it breastfeeds. It's like this bond is. I understand surrogacy if someone can't get pregnant, if this is the only way you can have kids. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying it's fucking strange because this other person is whatever anxiety they have, fear, their cortisol levels, if they have domestic abuse in their house, like all that information is being transferred to the child.
Pregnancy doesn't just make a kid, it also makes a mother.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous. I'm so conflicted. I mean, test tube babies. What happens if we can just create artificial wombs? You know, it's something that's weird. I know that people don't choose to be born, but somebody chooses whether or not these 2 sets of DNA are going to come together. If you've just got sperm donor after sperm donor and egg donor after egg donor and artificial wombs, it gets to the stage where people kind of aren't choosing who's coming into reality that much anymore.
Well, that is definitely the future. I mean, look at plummeting sperm counts. Look at rising miscarriage rates. Look at the problems that people are having with microplastics and the disruption of the endocrine system, and pesticides and herbicides, and all these different ubiquitous chemicals that are affecting people's sperm counts and fertility. It's a real factor, and it's plummeting. If you look at
if you look at like human beings from the last 60, 70 years, and you look at males in America, where their sperm count used to be where it is now, it's rapidly decreasing. There's a lot of factors: sedentary lifestyle, processed foods, but there's also environmental factors that seem to be altering the actual way a child develops in the womb. And this is Dr. Shanna Swan's work.
Countdown.
Yeah, which is an incredible, it's an incredible book, but it's just an incredible fact that the plastics that we use from microwave foods and water bottles and all that stuff is literally changing the development of children. It's changing the size of their testicles, the size of their penises, the
Anogenital distance.
Yeah, the taint shrinks. It's really crazy stuff, and it replicates what happens in mammals when they do these studies with rats and hamsters. And same things happen.
Well, a third of all children globally are going to be obese by 2050.
Jesus.
That's the current trajectory, and 1 billion people worldwide are obese. So the number one form of malnutrition globally is obesity, not starvation. There's twice as many people that are obese than are starving. If that's not a comment on problems of abundance as opposed to problems of scarcity.
Yeah, it's not even abundance though. It's the food is so calorie rich and filled with shit. You know that you get so fat so quick. Like if you're eating nothing but junk food and drinking nothing but soda, I sit here with a large Diet Coke, which I usually don't drink, but I do occasionally. That is like a Diet Coke at least doesn't have the calories, but if you're having a large Coke like that, like if you have a Coke like this, what is this, a liter? This is probably a liter.
750 maybe, or a liter?
Yeah, it's a liter. So how much sugar is in 1 liter of Coca-Cola? Let's find that out.
But there's nothing in that one, right?
Nothing.
Which is why it's the diet. Yeah.
It's just brain cancer. Donald Rumsfeld approved brain cancer.
Yeah.
4.7 grams of sugar in
That
that.
is so much sugar.
94.7 grams. And people polish these things off every day. Someone's polishing off a 2 liter of Mountain Dew listening to this as we speak. So that's probably double that. So that's hundreds of grams of sugar.
The big gulps. Yeah,
Oh.
the average American is fatter than the average American pig now. It's true. Average American man, 28% body fat. Average American woman, 40% body fat. Average American pig, 15 to 25% body fat.
Oh my God.
Yep.
I would have thought it would be higher than 28%. I think we're doing pretty good.
For guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's offset by like Brian Johnson and all of the
Right.
Ozempic people that are just
Shredded
super
folks.
shredded. Yeah, exactly. And then there was that other thing about you talking about kids. That some huge percentage of 18 to 24-year-olds couldn't join the military.
Yeah.
Like 70% because of mental health or obesity or drug use or something. And half of them had 2 or more of these excuses for why you couldn't do it. And I think if you track over time the amount of military service that people have had, so much less. Now.
Yeah.
It's so much less. And I wonder how many of the issues that we're seeing, even women being attracted to guys, I think that what you want to do as a guy is try and signal, again, same as going to the gym, reliable, orderly, conscientious, be on time, I can do hard things.
Yeah.
This is one of the proposed explanations for the baby boom, was that a lot of men that did come back from war were signaling their eligibility, signaling how reliable they could be, and it made it easier for women to be attracted in that way.
That makes sense. I mean, imagine a woman, you're going to get pregnant, and so you're going to be, you could work for a little while, but towards the end you're not going to be able to work. And then after the child, it's going to be very difficult to work. So you're reliant on this other person that, like, how well do you know this person? Did you do that 10-day vacation in Jamaica with that guy?
Did you drive from
Yeah.
Montego Bay to Kingston twice in bad traffic?
Do you know what happens when he makes mistakes? Does he blame other people, or does he apologize? Like, who is he? You know, because all that shit's gonna come up when you get 4 hours sleep because the baby's crying, and then, you know, maybe he doesn't like his job anymore, he wants to quit, and you're like, you can't quit, motherfucker. You have
They're
to
in there.
feed us. You have to take care of a family now. You're not gonna just quit. What are you talking about? You don't like your job? Show up. And I can't imagine relying on another person like that. I mean, this is why women are so picky. Like, when you see that 80% of the women are attracted to 20% of the men, and that's what that is.
What did you expect?
what did you expect? It's hard to have your shit together. It's hard to be kicking ass in this fucking complicated, bizarre world that we live in. It's hard. So for a woman, of course, they're gonna grab, oh, what about personality? Yeah, you're a fucking lazy bitch. That's part of your personality. Part of the reason why you're not successful at 40 years of age has to be you. Has to be. Some of it has to be. I mean, it could be a fucking avalanche of bad luck, one thing after the other, but I would like to see that you're making progress towards a better direction. But if you're stuck in this modality, if you're stuck in this mindset of, you know, the world fucks me over, it's like never gonna, no one's gonna want to be with you. No one's gonna want to have children with you. No one's gonna be willing to rely on you to support a family. Like, you have to get your shit together. And you have to also be attractive, which is just dumb luck. Like, you have the dumb luck of genetics. You got a good face. Ooh, you know, you got a good body. A lot of that's genetics too. You know, like, what they like and what they don't like is mostly about breeding. It's mostly about, is this person reliable to breed with?
It's interesting to think about the, you mentioned earlier on about going to the gym is right wing and liking fast cars is right wing and all the rest of it. The number of liberal women that are struggling, I think, to find an eligible partner is going up because they just can't find a guy that will hold the door open for them, that will treat them like a lady, that will try and be the protector, provider, procreator thing. You go, you're talking about a conservative. You're talking about somebody who's more traditional in that way. And I get worried, you know, I sort of talk a lot about this stuff on the show, and I get worried about not helping men to improve in this sort of zero-sum view of empathy, that if you give some attention to men and the way that they're struggling, that it takes it away from some other more deserving group. So a lot of the time, if someone's falling behind, 50 years ago, Title IX gets introduced, right, for women. Not enough women in higher education, there's not enough women expediting them through socioeconomic status. 50 years later, they've blown the fucking roof off the glass ceiling. It doesn't exist. 2 women for every 1 man completing a 4-year US college degree by 2030. Women earn way more than men do in their 20s. Way more. And now, how are you, it's going to be difficult for you to find an eligible partner as you begin to climb up your own socioeconomic ladder, as you get higher and higher up. You look across and there are fewer and fewer men over there. And what you think is, okay, well, typically, if a group is falling behind in society, we don't tell them to pick themselves up by their bootstraps. We spend billions of money in taxpayer-funded charities and think tanks to try and work out what's going on and to try and bring them along for the ride. That's not happening with men, because vestigially, for so long, men had it so good. And now it's, I don't know, it feels like twisting the knife in some sort of karmic retribution, in a way. Like, this is penance that you're paying. But a lot of guys, you can look at the number of CEOs, and sure, guys that outperform on the top end, yep. But that's not necessarily due to privilege. It's because putting yourself in that position to do what you need to do to get yourself to the position of being a founder, being a CEO, running a successful company, is so fucking insane that most women would just choose to not go and do that. You're talking about outliers. Evolutionary psychology says that men are nature's playthings, that there's more variability. There's more male geniuses, but there's also more male retards. And it's all well and good pointing to the number of CEOs and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and all the rest of it. That doesn't help the guy who is really struggling and has had that run of bad luck and has been really struggling, trying to work on himself. And yeah, if women have a problem, a lot of the time we say, what can we do to fix society? Any other group. But if men are struggling, we say, what is it that men are doing where they can't fix themselves? And in some ways that's inspiring. Like, guys want that sense of like, I can fucking do this, I can do this. But it denies that there's structural problems. I think the education system for young boys is really, really tough. Getting them to sit in a classroom still for 6 hours a day. It seems like females are just better at doing that. Young girls are more effective at a sort of brain-based economy, highlighting and planning ahead of the homework that they've got to do and the assignments and stuff like that. And you just roll that forward. 2 women for every 1 man completing a 4-year US college degree. And I'm not saying, oh, let's rip women out of the classroom and out of the boardroom and put them back into the kitchen. Like, obviously not. Obviously that's not what either of us are saying.
Well, what do you think is the cause of it? Like, what do you think is the reason why more men aren't
succeeding and getting college degrees, and more men aren't going out and making as much money in their 20s?
I think that the current environment does not necessarily lend itself to the disposition that men have got. So they're less conscientious than women from a personality standpoint on average. That means that it's really difficult, comparatively on average, for you to be able to remind yourself that you need to do this sort of homework. Men are more predisposed to addiction, they're more predisposed to using recreational drugs, they're more predisposed to being in jail, to all of the sort of gang stuff that people get drawn into. It's just more likely for guys. There are more routes that men can be pulled away in that sort of a manner. And on top of it, I don't think that there is a particularly inspiring vision for what men is. But you said earlier on about fitness right wing, fast cars right wing. There was this thread on Reddit, I think in a left-leaning forum, that said, people of the left, can you give me a good example of who you think a positive male role model would be? And the top voted one was Aragorn from Lord of the Rings.
What about Fabio?
You've had to go to Fantasyland in order to be able to find somebody who's sufficiently pure. And I think that, this is one of the issues that we see on the left, which is there is no level of purity, or the level of purity.
The wheat thing I used to think was nonsense until I ate pasta and bread in Italy. And I was like, okay, why do I feel so much better? Why do I not feel like I just ate poison? Because I love pizza. Oh, I love it. I love lasagna. Oh, I love it. I love it. It's so good. But after it's over, I'm incapacitated for like an hour or two. For like a 2-hour period, just like a shadow of yourself. Just.
Yeah. And you think, maybe it's just the high carbs, but you just proved that it wasn't, because in Italy we were okay with it.
I ate a whole pizza in Italy, and I was waiting for it. I was like, I'm going to eat this margarita pizza. It's so good. They made it in a brick oven.
Yes.
I was like, this is so good. I'm eating the whole pizza. I don't care. I don't care what it's going to feel like afterwards. I ate that whole pizza, and then I was like, where is it? Is it coming? It never came. Never came. I felt normal. I felt like I just ate food. I was like, this is nuts. Like, no crash.
Yeah. The bread in Scandinavia is the same.
That's what people used to eat.
People don't know that what's that?
I said that's what people used to eat.
It is like real food.
Well, the people need to understand, like, what they did was, and this is according to Maynard from Tool. Maynard Keenan, the lead singer of Tool.
No.
He actually runs a farm. He has vineyards, and he has like Caduceus is his wine label, and he's like really good at growing things because he has a restaurant. He was explaining to me that what they did is they just engineered it to have higher yield. So they put it's got more complex glutens in it. So it's not the normal organic wheat that grows in Italy, where they don't have genetically modified crops.
Right.
So you can still get that flour, and you can still get that pasta from Italy, and it's much more consumable.
Yeah.
But the American stuff is just yuck. It's just, your body's like, what is this? It just comes in like sludge.
It's interesting.
It feels like I ate glue. That's what it always feels like when it's over. Unless it's really good sourdough bread. That doesn't seem to have that.
Yeah. And I'm not gluten sensitive, but I definitely feel more awake when I don't have it.
Yeah, it's not.
Good on holiday or
but
when
it's
you
so
want to go to sleep.
delicious.
I know.
It's so delicious. But this is also a problem. And this goes back to when R.J. Reynolds was going through all their stuff with the lawsuits that were coming from people realizing, oh my God, cigarettes give you cancer? They're not good to like smoke if you have emphysema? I thought they were good for...
Add some arsenic and it'd be great.
There was a movie, and I forget what movie it was, and it...
Thank you for smoking.
Well, there's that. But there was a movie where Leonardo DiCaprio was young, and he was sick, and his doctor was prescribing cigarettes to him. And like the mother was saying, did you smoke your cigarettes that the doctor told you? You're not smoking. Like, you need to keep up your health.
Well, there's something to that, because about the nicotinic receptors, and the smokers got less COVID than the rest of us, and there's definitely some protective effects.
Well, also, doesn't nicotine kill COVID? Like, people were saying that nicotine, so that's what it is? That's how it kills it?
Well, what happens, so the spike of COVID, which is the evil part of COVID, has all these horrible lab-engineered proteins encoded into them. And 2 of them are snake toxin proteins that bind onto your nicotinic receptors, okay? So if you can smoke nicotine or take nicotine gum, then you're going to block those receptors up so you can trade off some of the stuff that's from the spike.
What about like nicotine pouches? or
Yeah,
these kind
like
of
that
things?
would probably, if you're having, long COVID or, any kind of post-COVID syndrome that's related to the nicotinic receptors, you only know by trying it. But listen, I always say start small. Don't go out and be a hero and, take a whole dose at once. Start with a quarter of whatever it says and wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
Because
Or
nicotine's a powerful drug.
try a cigar. Pick up the cigar.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a wonderful habit. Yeah, that was an uncomfortable thing in the beginning of COVID. They were saying that for some reason smokers seem to be having a much easier go of it. Like, what? How do you have a respiratory disease where smokers are statistically speaking getting less COVID?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been around, I did a tour one time, and there were two heavy smokers on the bus with me, and they were the only two people that didn't come down with whatever flu with all the rest of us got. Not even that flu couldn't even live in their throats.
It kind of makes sense if you think about it.
Well, it changes the polarity of the mucous membranes, the charge of the cells on your mucous membranes, and that's probably part of why that even the viruses can't adhere properly.
We're not encouraging cigarettes.
No, we're not at all.
But we are saying it's
But
got
if
some
you are, it
benefits.
should be non-cured, naturally cured.
Oh, like American
non-chemical.
Spirits?
Yes.
Like those kind of deals?
I get all my smoking friends to convert to that brand.
Does that help?
Totally. Come on, are
Yeah.
you kidding me? You know how many horrible carcinogens there are. Back in the native days when they were smoking and people were smoking natural cigarettes, it was almost unheard of for them to develop lung cancer
Right.
with the natural tobacco.
American Spirit cigarettes are
No,
not
sorry,
healthier.
they're absolutely wrong. It is.
It's marketed as natural and additive-free, which may lead people to believe that they are a safer option. However, there's no scientific evidence to support this claim. They may even have higher levels of nicotine than some other brands. But the nicotine's not the problem. So
That's
just,
exactly right.
Just by them saying that that leads me to think that this might be propaganda.
Yeah.
Because saying that nicotine is not the problem, that's
Who is our
or
source?
rather saying that they might
this
have
is
more
AI
nicotine.
overview. Okay.
Well, I'm just.
But- But I understand. But AI should understand that
Ask Tony
nicotine.
Hinchcliffe.
Oh, I know he does. I'm just saying, AI doesn't make sense. What doesn't make sense is that it's saying they might have more nicotine, but that doesn't matter.
They're not addressing the
I'm just
actual
using that
question.
to skip time to save time so I don't have to go through.
Oh, no. I'm not saying to you. I'm just saying to them. Like, what they're writing seems to kind of be silly. Marketing of American Spirits as natural can create a false sense of healthiness, which may make it more difficult for people to quit smoking. I think smoking companies wrote this. I think the other companies fed this information.
Well,
I
don't you
think
love the
like the
packages
Marlboro
that have the
people
people
wrote that.
spitting up blood on the packages and stuff? Do you see them,
Oh,
right?
in England, you get those.
No, they have it now.
Oh, they have it in America
Do they
here?
not have it?
They
See,
used to
I-
have it in
I
America. In
live in
England, you
overseas,
go to
so-
England and they had photos of people with like
That's
rotten
right.
faces.
That's where I first saw it. But it's moved to the rest of. I know it's hilarious. It's like they still buy them and smoke them.
Well, the interesting thing is, and I'm glad you brought this up, is just cancer in general. Like, there's things that cause cancer that they're just everywhere, and there's a lot of things in the environment can cause cancer. But sometimes things get into medications that can cause cancer. And what is SV40?
I just wrote down SB40 while you were
Okay.
talking. And I'm just going to give you an example of what you're saying is correct. And the fact of the matter is that all cancers in humanity have gone up since the inception of vaccination. And my opinion, my educated opinion, is that our lifespan should be 120 years. And I think with the knowledge that we have and the wealth that we have on this planet, ingenuity we have on this planet, we should be able to be touching the 120-year mark more commonly than we do. So when vaccines started coming into humanity, we started introducing animal disease into humanity through the skin. And then we started doing intramuscular injections after the hypodermic needle was created. And then you started having deeper injections of animal disease and of chemicals and mercuries and things like that. So along comes polio research, and the polio vaccine, even to this day, is made on African green monkey kidney cells. Now, the African green monkey kidneys early on were basically taken out of their wild habitat in India, and millions of monkeys were brought to the USA for use. Unbeknownst to them, and discovered by a scientist named Dr. Bernice Eddy, is that there was a cancer-causing entity inside of the the substrate that they were using to make the vaccine on the Petri dishes. And that entity was simian virus 40, SV40, and called SV40 because before there were 39 others discovered before it. Now we're up over 100. So that information was suppressed heavily. Bernice Eddy was offered a ticket to wherever she wanted to go and as much money as she wanted, and she said, no, I'm staying. Long story short is they just kept taking her away from her work and distracting her, and there was another doctor, J. Anthony Morris, as well. Anyway, so the SV40 was around, and then Maurice Hilleman validated it later and said it came from the African green monkey kidneys. Now, it's benign in the African green monkey, SV40. It is not benign in human beings. In human beings, it was called the perfect war machine by Dr. Michel Carboni, who was one of the primary researchers looking at the carcinogenic potential of simian virus 40. So simian virus 40 would have been in the live polio vaccines because there was nothing to kill it, but it was most likely also in the killed. And African green monkey cells are actually still a listed ingredient on vaccines, so you can go ahead and look that up. It's a fact. So how this affects me is that I'm a kidney specialist, and I looked at the curve of kidney cancers that have gone up since the inception of polio vaccines and SV40 introduction. So what this virus does, it enhances two cancer-promoting genes, and it inhibits two cancer suppressors, okay? That's why it's called the perfect war machine. So that was in the vaccines that were injected. And so the bad news is that we don't need vaccines to give it to us anymore because we're going to give it to each other forever, and it's never going anywhere. That was introduced to humanity like a lot of other diseases were through vaccination. We can give it to our kids, we can give it to each other. It comes out in the urine, and so it lives in the green monkey kidneys, it lives in our kidneys. As a kidney specialist, there were a lot of mysterious diseases. Lo and behold, there was some research into some of them, and the research was just, this is the other thing, the research that's really important just gets killed, the funding gets killed. In terms of SV40 kidney cancers, there's no doubt that the rate of kidney cancers has gone up alongside with the infection rate of humanity for SV40, as well as diseases like glomerulonephritis, which they do find the pathogen genetic material inside. And even in the old days, they found it in the tumors, but not the surrounding areas. So that just tells you that it was a stimulant for the tumor cells to just start propagating. So that's just one of the things that's just one of many of the obvious ones. And even though it's been well defined in the medical literature, you will still see that they only admit that it causes mesotheliomas and one other thing, not that it causes all the other things that it does, that it's been shown to cause in the other medical literature that got its funding revoked.
So SV40 is now contagious amongst people?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So-
We probably both have it. Most of us probably have had it one time or other, whether it's lying dormant in our kidneys. It depends on, everything depends on your background immunity, which depends on what you're doing for fun and not fun, and how you're eating, and how much you're sleeping, etc., how much sun you're getting, sweating. Sweating
Yeah.
gets rid of a lot of stuff. It's really good to sweat.
It's just such a disturbing thought that this was introduced to people through vaccines and now is spreading. And what's the worst health impact that it could have if it spreads to you and not through a vaccine? If you didn't get it through this vaccine and you just get it from another person, like,
Oh, it's the same thing. It's not going to make much difference in terms of it'll gravitate to your kidneys. Obviously, it probably goes to lung as well. Brain tumors were a big problem with it back in the polio days. Dr. Michel Carboni was looking at the brain tumors with that. There's a really good book called The Virus and the Vaccine by Bookchin and Schumacher. It's an incredible book that details everything about those years, the scientists involved, the suppression, the oppression, the lies, the skullduggery. Then they would bring in the scientist who had no experience in actually detecting SV40, and lo and behold, he couldn't find it. He was the one that got to make the ultimate statement on whether SV40 causes human disease or not.
how could they keep injecting that into people if they know this?
Oh, and the stocks that contained SV40 were still basically being used by the vaccine manufacturers up into the 1990s and probably beyond, because there's two different kinds of SV40. You're making me remember a whole bunch of things that I thought I forgot. But there's the fast dividing and there's the slow dividing. There's two different kind of strains of it. And the original test, so when they made a vaccine, they would test it for 14 days looking for SV40. If it didn't have it, off you went, your vaccine was good to go. But problem is there was a slower dividing SV40 that remained in the vaccines that were injected, and probably in the stocks that are the stock is basically like your mother tincture or whatever. It's what you use to kind of inoculate all the new batches over time. And so the stocks were found. That's again quote Attorney Stanley Kopp's quote in the book about the SV40 still being in the stock up and through the 1990s. And God only knows if they're still using those same stocks. I don't know, because I haven't gone into the more modern times of SV40. But yeah, we all have it, and there's no doubt in my mind that it's just like another one of the things that the parasites have finally pretty much put into us to set us back.
Demons. It's like real world demons. It's so crazy that someone would know this and still have this as an ingredient in a vaccine.
Well, they'll say that it was just an unfortunate set of events that happened because they took wild monkeys from India. See, I could work for them. That's their excuse, and they say we cleaned it up. We started our own monkey colonies, and we started breeding our own monkey colonies that were now found to be free of SV40. The only problem with that is that, as I said, they had already inoculated humanity, and it's with a virus that can be spread vertically and horizontally, as the scientists would describe. We've all given it to each other. I think there are going to be very few people walking around today that haven't been introduced to it.
Have there ever been a comparison of pre-cancer rates, pre-SV40 and post-SV40?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I did. Is I in one of my videos I did that and looked at the cancer rates since they were, So again, what they'll say is, well, we just didn't look at the rates beforehand, but the rates were quite low before. You can know what the nephrectomies were. So it's kind of an easy thing to look at, because that's the treatment for kidney cancer. You take the kidney out because you've got another kidney, and it's a slow-growing tumor, even though it can metastasize. But anyway, I did look at, and the rate has skyrocketed for kidney cancers. Pretty much everybody knows somebody who had a kidney cancer.
And that was not common.
And also these protein-losing diseases, which is, again, it's not controversial. It was documented when they looked at the areas that were affected in the kidney, with these horrible disease that makes people lose the proteins that need to stay in their blood and their body out into their urine, that the SV40 was related to that. It's called focal and segmental glomerulosclerosis, and it's a real problematic disease in children and adults. Ultimately, you have to go on horrible chemotherapy drugs that ruin your immune system, and then transplantation if you can't stay on top of it. Big money maker. Now, do I think that was the purpose? Look, I don't know what was in the hearts and minds. I don't know what was accidental and what wasn't, but I do know that there was intentional suppression of the truth. Any doubts, whether or not well-funded, must not be allowed to exist. That is a fact, and it's always been that way, and there have been scientists and doctors talking about that since the beginning of vaccination.
It's just too horrible to believe for most people, I think. And then also,
yes, you're correct.
It goes against religious dogma, especially with people that are like firmly on the left, trusting the science and trusting the experts. Those are two things at the front.
Yeah. It's kind of a childlike situation that humanity, and most of humanity is in, is that I think most people are good, and they want to believe everybody else is good. And they want to believe that the government is looking out for them. And it's it's a kind of horrifying. And imagine if it was true that your government actually wasn't looking out for you, and that might be one of the causes of your decreasing lifespan. Imagine that if the government might not care so much if your baby ends up with no stem cells, or your baby gets cancer or autism, which will be outright. Look at autism. Hello. Like, how many, I don't know where to start with that. But that was another thing where there was no doubt whether or not well-funded allowed to exist when it came to autism. And every autistic parent of an autistic child will tell you this. Everyone that's tried to lobby and get to the truth with autism will tell you that the brick walls and the plexiglass and the lead walls that went down were intense and still are intense. And the lying studies that they use to uphold vaccines don't cause autism are so easy to dismantle. But Joe, the lie gets around the earth 3 times before the truth has a chance to get out of bed, and that's just pretty much what happens when the media is owned. And you're like one of the cracks in the matrix here, quite frankly.
I think for a lot of people, it's too horrible to believe, especially if they have an autistic child, that this was caused by a vaccine. I know a guy who told me that he believes the vaccine had an impact on his child having autism, and then later was shaming people for not taking the COVID vaccine. That's how strong the impulse is, and that's how good the propaganda was, and that's how cowardly a lot of people are when it comes to fighting against a narrative. They get very scared of being socially ostracized, and they can't speak their mind. They can't tell the truth, and they'll whisper it to maybe this one guy that they're friends with, like, hey, I don't want to take it, but I have to for work. Like, yeah, I don't trust them either. But shh, don't tell anybody I said that. You don't want anybody thinking you're on the bad side. And we all saw the propaganda on television. There's some amazing montages that people put together lately of people saying horrible things about the vaccinated people, unvaccinated people, horrible things, saying that it may be ghoulish to laugh when unvaccinated people die, but it might be necessary. Like, what?
Maybe a few of us have to take one for the team.
It was just the weirdest propaganda campaign, and people were doing the job of the man. It wasn't the man forcing the people to do this thing. It was people doing the job of the man and going after the people that hadn't stepped in line. And I think for a lot of people, it's like they felt terrible that they had to do it. But if they did it, now I'm righteous. Now I'm on the good side. Why don't you do it too, man? I fucking did it. You should do it too. You're fucking selfish. You get a lot of that. You get a lot of people who they know they made a mistake and they want you to make that mistake too.
Yeah, it would be good to know what really goes through their heads. I think COVID was, again, it was unique. But when you talk to parents who have autistic children, the vast majority of them not only know absolutely without a doubt that their child became autistic, usually within 24 to 48 hours after a certain vaccine, but that every doctor told them it wasn't the case, and then they go digging deep into the scientific literature and learn how to sometimes resuscitate that child's brain or detox them, and then recover them, and then they're actually beaten up even worse for doing that because they're just neurodiverse. There's nothing wrong with your child; they're just quirky. No, your child banging its head against the wall, walking around with a baby bottle and a diaper at the age of 18, your big hairy son doing that is not neurodiverse quirkiness. That is a serious pathological disease that probably could have been dealt to at the time and should have been prevented, should have never happened. So most parents that have that situation on fire, it's a minority that will say, have the situation that you have right now. Most of them, that's a wake-up call, which is why they get beat up and suppressed even worse than I do. But when it comes to COVID, there was the psychological campaign, I think, was very effective in that people that I would have never imagined took the jab, like friends of mine who I, in a million years, would have bet my life that they would say no to it, ended up getting it, didn't want it, were really upset about it later, but nonetheless did it.
Had they read your book?
Yes. I see. I didn't lose any friends during COVID because I had already lost them back in 2009. My family and friends were solid. My tribe is here, but but I still love this person, and she's really upset about it. But it's it just shows you that the psychological campaign, to get into that person's brain was
over and over again. You should see your parents more. All your worries are a waste of time. These.
Yeah.
It's perfectly okay to cut toxic people out of your life. These are so trite. They're such basic bitch insights because everybody has heard them before. But if they're so basic, why does everyone who ends up arriving at them talk about them as if they've just had religious revelation? You know what I mean?
Yes.
They have this fervor to them about why it is so important for you to listen, that we couldn't have seen this coming. How could we have seen this coming? It's it is in every single fable and story from the rest of time. And I think that one of the reasons this happens is if you don't have a thing, looking at somebody who has that thing, they have the solution to your problem. If you don't have money, you believe that by having money, all of your problems would be fixed.
Right.
If you don't have fame, you believe that fame is the thing that's going to get. If you don't have the goal, you think that getting the goal is going to do those things.
Yeah.
And it is only by getting there and looking back and going, the issue that I thought would be fixed by getting the thing wasn't fixed.
No.
Fuck, I need to look deeper. So not only do we refuse to sort of learn the lessons, if you talk about this on the internet, if you have a rich person on who says, you know what, man, I earned a couple of $1 billion and I'm still pretty miserable. You bring some actress on. She says, you know, all of the fame and stuff like that, it really didn't fix my self-worth. The internet hates that.
Yeah.
It's a very contentious point to bring up. And I think that we believe our particular mental makeup would allow us to dance through this minefield.
Yeah.
Right? No. My unique inner landscape would be salved
Yes.
by this problem.
Especially men.
Watch me dance through this minefield, avoid all of the tripwires, do a couple of pirouettes, and I won't kick any of them.
Yeah.
And then you kick one. And you realize, oh, fuck, this worry of mine was so much more deeply rooted than the thing that's from outside. But I genuinely believe that you kind of need to learn it yourself. I don't think you can. I've got Naval on the show on Sunday.
He's great.
He's fucking phenomenal. I think that, by the way, the one that you did with him in 2019 is the best podcast episode of all time.
Really?
That 2 hours. Yeah, it's just one I've gone back. Maybe it's just like personally meaningful to me, but I must have listened to that, I think, more than any other.
He's
So, yeah,
very wise.
He's
very,
awesome.
very wise person. Although he did tell me that if he could invest more money in Clubhouse, he would have. And we were talking on the phone. I was
Questionable.
like, dude, I think this is just bad podcasting. I don't think there's, but Clubhouse took off during the pandemic because people found themselves at home, and you know, it's kind of cool to be able to hop on to a call with a bunch of other people, and you're basically sharing ideas with people you've never met before and intellectually sparring, and people loved it. But I was like, bro,
when the world reopens.
I did it with Tim Dillon. We did an episode once, and he was like, yeah, it goes out there, and then, you know, no one ever has. I go, bullshit, people are recording this right now. I go, it's going to be online. And it was
Sure enough,
online
online.
immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. I go, this is nonsense.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like at the mothership, making people put their phones in the bag, but you can reopen the bag. It's like that.
if you could reopen the bag.
Yeah, but you can reopen the bag. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm allowed to do this and just
Yeah.
take it. It's like, wait, everything's
Yeah.
done. Yeah, it's a real interesting one, but he's got this quote where he says, it's far easier to achieve our material desires than it is to renounce them. But it's much
Yeah.
easier for you to drive a beat-up Chevy truck if your last car was a Ferrari,
Sure. Yeah.
because you've closed that loop. That what
Yeah.
if? I wonder if it is the money. I
Right.
wonder if it is the fame. I wonder if it is the...
But it depends on the circles you're keeping too, because if you're keeping circles that are valuing those items that show like you've achieved milestones, you know, there's a bunch of people that they you know, you don't have a Maybach, oh, you don't have a this.
Keeping up
huh.
with the Joneses. is
Where's
a
your
hell of a
house?
fucking job.
Oh, your house is in not the best neighborhood. Oh.
I was thinking about why I'm attracted to some of my friends, like why I like to spend time with some over others. And I sort of realized this interesting dynamic that I hadn't really heard get talked about much, which is we think that we want to be charismatic. Like we think we want to step into a room, our stories are electric, energy, the aura, everyone's super impressed by us. I didn't actually notice that was the sort of people that I was choosing to hang around with. There's this story about Jenny Jerome, who was Winston Churchill's mother, and she gets to dine with William Gladstone and Benjamin Disraeli, the prime minister and the opponent, one night after the other. And she says, after I left the dinner with Gladstone, I left feeling like he was the smartest person in England. And after I left the dinner with Disraeli, I felt like I was the smartest woman in England. And I think this really helps to explain why we gravitate towards certain people. Some people feel interesting, and around some people, we feel interesting.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite sort of person. I think charisma, being charismatic, being energizing, it's the sort of thing lots of people are seduced by. They love the sound of it, but it's kind of like developing real charisma. Like Matthew McConaughey sit opposite this guy and he's fucking oozing charisma. But it's way easier to be interested than it is to be interesting. And it gets you probably 80%, 90% of the way there just by caring and asking
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
Thinking, I want to know what you think about this.
Right.
That's cool,
Genuinely.
Joe. Tell me more about that. And why do you think that you're built that way?
Right.
And it helps. I mean, people just love to talk about themselves. And the other thing is, you know everything that you know. You know barely anything that the other person knows.
Right.
And I mean, this is why our job is largely the most selfish one that we could do. Hey, smart person, come on here and tell me about your entire life's work.
Yeah.
Tell the least educated person in the room about
Yeah.
what it is that you've spent your time doing.
Yeah. And it's also, it's very beneficial for the people that are listening, which is another service that it provides. Like, you get to be you. like the person listening to your podcast gets to be you as you interview these spectacular people. So they get to like, oh, why'd you do that? And then you say, why did you do that? Like, yeah, good question.
That's
good
the
question.
Most, you know what it feels like? It feels like watching a sports game sometimes. I think the best conversations, whether they're around a table or a podcast or whatever, it feels like watching a sports match and the two teams are kind of working together to get the ball in the goal. And you get all excited and you're like, oh, he's going to do this. You go, overhead kick. Whoa, that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
And if you're ever listening to something, I'm sure that this maybe happened to people listening to this episode. You go, fuck, I hope he asks him about the thing. He asked him about the thing.
Yeah.
And there's this sense that there's a third participant, not just Jamie, in the room. Where's Carl? I just realized there should be a fourth participant.
Carl's at home. Carl snores a lot.
Okay, he's a sound risk.
Sometimes it gets a little loud. And while the podcast is going on, you hear, nudge him.
Roll him over. Make him shut up. Yeah,
It depends on who I'm talking to. Like if I'm talking to like a theoretical physicist and there's like some very difficult thing to grasp and you hear Carl snoring, it becomes a little bit of an issue.
if it's coming through the headphones.
He's loud.
Sleep train.
So-
Sleep train that dog.
No, you can't.
He's gotten older. You can handle it.
He needs a CPAP.
Doggy CPAP. Fuck.
Have you seen what their faces look like? The skulls?
When
French
it's
bulldog skulls?
No.
Oh, it's horrible what they've done to them.
through selective breeding.
Yes.
Just slowly.
They just shove their fucking skull. It's all twisted where their sinuses are like non-existent. Their whole face is just smushed in.
So we can't really complain about the snoring.
Well, I mean, we did it to them. They used to be
exactly.
wolves.
Yeah.
They used to be a wolf.
Yeah. I told you about that man crush that I had last time, that unkillable soldier guy.
Yeah.
And it sort of sent me down a rabbit hole. I fell in love with stories of crazy bastards from history. So I found this other dude called Amo Koivunen,
Oh, I've heard of that guy.
the Finnish soldier.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he is out on patrol with a bunch of Finnish soldiers, small group, and they come upon a Soviet force way bigger than they are. They can't fight them, so they have to flee. As they're fleeing, they're skiing away through the snow, and the force is way bigger. Amo's at the front, he's trailblazing, trying to break free from this group, but he can't go fast enough. If they get caught, they're going to be captured or killed or worse. So he needs to speed up. He doesn't know how. He's carrying the entire patrol's supply of Pervitin. Now, Pervitin was a German miracle drug that was used to keep soldiers awake during the war.
Meth.
It's otherwise known, as methamphetamine. And he decided, I mean, you might think, this wasn't just any normal meth, right? This was pharmaceutical grade, wartime human horsepower, right? It was the most intense. So you might think, tolerating the dose could be a good idea. There's a rumor that apparently it had melted in his pocket, but whatever he did, he took 30 people's worth. He took 30 soldiers worth of meth. The entire packet, just ate the entire packet.
Whoa.
Unsurprisingly, he manages to break away from the pursuing Soviets, and he leads his group away. So they chill out on the far side once they're finally free, and they notice that Amo's behaving a little bit oddly, and he seems to be a danger to himself and to them, so they take his ammo out of his rifle, and they take his knife off him, and they're sort of putting stuff away in the pack. And they turn around, and he's gone. Like, fuck, where's Amo gone? He skis for 63 miles on his own. Just skis away, doesn't really know what he's doing, he's in this sort of fever dream thing. Lays down, goes to sleep. Wakes up the next day, no idea where he is. Doesn't know where his group is, doesn't know where the squadron is, doesn't know where he is. Immediately sees a Soviet soldier over the far side, raises his rifle, click. Fuck, they took my ammo. Hurls the rifle at this Soviet soldier, and he explodes in a cloud of white dust. Turns out that it wasn't a Soviet soldier, it was a tree branch with snow on it, and that he's actually hallucinating. So he's in a full-on fever dream now. Whoa. Imagine this Soviet soldier throws the gun at him, he explodes. It's like, fuck, okay, I need to find my squadron, how am I going to get back to them? So he decides to just try and navigate around for a couple of hours, and he sees them over the far side. Sees a fire, he sees his group over the far side, way far away, so he skis for another 2 hours. Turns out that it wasn't his squadron, it was more Soviet soldiers, so he just skis straight through the middle of the camp. All of these guys immediately chase after him, but there's no chance. Like, he's the fucking LeBron James of meth, right? You're not catching this guy. So he goes straight through again. Second night, finds a hut, finds a wooden cabin in the middle of the the snow, decides to set a fire, but he doesn't set it in the fireplace. Sets it in the middle of the wooden hut. And throughout the night, he sort of shuffles himself further and further away. For some reason, his back's getting a little bit warm, and he keeps on sort of shuffling himself further and further away. He wakes up the next morning.
And you're like, but this is like such a dumb checkers play. I'm like, this is so stupid. I'm still doing my podcast, you fucking idiots. And like, everyone's gonna know that you put a green filter over my face. I'm gonna show everybody that. You think you're just gonna get away with that? No, you're gonna like lose all of your credibility, you idiots. It was just so fascinating to watch, like this distorted understanding of like what America is willing to believe, or the world is willing to believe. Like, you're only preaching to the converted, the super hardcore, closed-minded, converted people. Everyone else knows you guys are a joke now, and that's the good part of getting through COVID. The good part of this enormous gaslighting experience that we all just went through, where people are finally, after 4 years, apologizing to friends, you know, for calling them a plague rat. You know, like literally, it got down to that, where friends couldn't be friends with people anymore because they weren't vaccinated. And people are kind of like realizing, like, oh my God, not only did I get COVID more than anybody else, because I got 3 shots. Like, I had a friend tell me this. He goes, I got COVID more than everyone I know, and I had all 3 shots. He's like, I got COVID 8 fucking times. And we're like, how many times did you get it? And everybody that got it naturally was like, I got it once, maybe I got it twice. But the second time I got it was literally a sniffy nose. Just literally and I was joking, because we used to test everyone, including the guests. Everyone that came here, we tested for COVID. And I was joking, I'm like, maybe this is it. Maybe I got it again. And she's like, you actually got it. I'm like, no way. This is COVID? And it never got worse. It stopped right there. That was it. One day of a sniffly nose, and then a couple days later, I said, all right, let's try and get tested again, see if we can still do another podcast, and that was good. But I had to cancel the podcast.
You're not allowed to have a healthy immune system.
But the fact that that's the thing. It's like there's real science behind all the things you talk about in your book in terms of like the nutritional aspects of healthy foods being an important factor in your immune system. Healthy, we were talking about juices and vegetable juices and all the different times that it's helped people overcome certain diseases, and vitamin A and cod liver oil, which also has vitamin A, which was always prescribed to people that were sick. Like, all these things this is real science. Like, there's real science in nutritional supplementation and the effects that it has on the immune system. And there's real science in nutritional deficiencies and what a negative impact it has. This is all real. And if they truly cared about you, they would be telling you about that as a primary way of defending your body against disease and against all sorts of things that could go wrong. All sorts of things. Like, get fit, eat healthy, and you're above everything. Take supplements, you're above everything. Like, you're in the top 1% of people that are going to do great in life when it comes to getting sick. Just that. And because most people don't do that. So you have, like, what percentage of people, like, really eat healthy and really try to exercise on a regular basis? Is it even 10? Is it even 10% of us?
It depends. I get maybe what state you live in.
Let's just have a guess nationwide and see if there's a chart, see if there's a statistic. Let's guess what percentage of people eat healthy, take vitamins, and exercise regularly. I say 10%. What do you think?
Yeah, it could be, because you still got your teenagers and your young college students that are in sports and things like that.
A lot of older people
You'd hope
are
they would
more,
qualify.
yeah, but a lot of people, like, you know, even though they have a hard job, they still realize, like, I gotta go to the gym before work and just get it in. Because if I don't, I won't have any energy. I'm better off this way. I know it sucks, but just do it. There's like people in it that have enough discipline to do that. So I would give it, I think it's 1 out of 10. That's what I think. What do we got, Jamie?
This is impossible.
Yeah, it's a little impossible. What about AI? Run that shit through ChatGPT.
How are you going to get the answer to my point? Not like.
Well, let's see what
What
Chat.
percent of
Someone's gotta-
Americans
People have to
work out?
honestly answer the question in a poll that they're, you know.
Well, let's ask ChatGPT just for a good.
My point, ChatGPT has to find the answer somewhere.
Right. But
The
let's see
answer
what she
doesn't
says.
Oh, okay.
Let's just for funsies. Let's just say.
I know, right out of the gate, the answer is that 86% of people take vitamins and supplements, 4 to 5 for American adults.
Is that real? That's good. If That's true. That's really good. I wouldn't think that's true though.
I don't buy that.
Yeah, I don't buy that. That's written by a supplement company.
Yeah, and what supplements and how, sometimes you can overdo. You do a hair mineral analysis on people, and sometimes you find things that are, pretty shocking in terms of that came from supplements. You can overdo it with even selenium.
Sure.
You can end up with big problems. So
There's also a problem with cross-contamination. One of the things that we found out when we were selling Alpha Brain is that in the beginning when we would hire a lab to make the formula for us, like so you have like a list of ingredients and then they put together this thing which is a nootropic. We'd find stuff in there that we didn't have in there, and it was from their bins, so they didn't clean their bins. So it's like, why is vitamin B12 in this? Like, why is this in that? Why is that? And it's just because that's the same manufacturing place where they make all kinds of stuff, creatine and all
It
kinds
doesn't say
of
how
stuff.
I got the answer, but it's less than 10%.
Okay, likely less than 10%. Okay, if you're talking about people who consistently do all three, it drops significantly. Less than 10%, maybe even closer to 3 to 5%, depending on how strict your definition of healthy is. Yeah. That's so.
But, we're
That's what
talking-
that was a good guess.
We're talking about adults here, presumably, but one of the facts is that the foundation that your immune system is created and developed in is probably, if not as more important than that, and that is being born the vaginal birth versus a C-section. Not putting down people who've had C-sections. I'm just saying the science shows that there is a distinct difference in C-section babies' immune systems versus non-C-section. There's a distinct difference in breastfed babies versus non-breastfed. And there's a distinct difference in babies whose mothers have a healthy diet and breastfeed versus mothers who don't have a healthy diet and breastfeed. So that foundation actually makes your gut grow normally, which is a large part of your immune system. It colonizes your gut because the bacteria from your mother's gut goes into your gut, goes in from her gut through her lymph system into her breast and then to your gut. And so all that foundational stuff is something not to be ignored because it's going to make you deal with diseases better, and if you have to get vaccinated, it's going to make you deal with vaccines better even as a child. Not that I'm in favor of that, but I'm just saying if you want to set things up as solidly as possible to be able to take that insult. The problem is we don't know 20, 30, 40 years later what the associations are between bone diseases, skin diseases, cancers, autoimmune diseases. We have some clues. I have some clues that nobody wants to look at. But we've got this long-term problem that nobody looks at. Long-term effects of lifestyle, of vaccination, of even SV40. There was one study that started tracking 1,000 SV40 people that they knew were infected with SV40 looking for diseases later in life, and they stopped it after 19 years. Again, axed. But they still had over 700 people left in the study because they said that too much time had gone by. Well, the fact of the matter is that's when the study should have started. 17 to 20 years later is when they should have started looking at that point, not 1 year, 2 years. But most vaccine trials and drug trials, they don't. Vaccine trials, it's like 2 weeks is almost a miracle for someone to follow out that long. Forget about looking months or years later. It doesn't happen.
When you first decided to write this book, how much apprehension did you have?
Zero.
Zero. You were just fully convicted to get this idea out.
Well, it was a bit of a process, if you want to know it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So what first happened is that I kept getting challenged while I stayed on for 2 years as a nephrologist in my hospital. So I wasn't kicked out. I left because my soul just couldn't hang out there anymore. And so during that time, even though I was kind of ostracized behind my back, everybody still respected me as a nephrologist, but I still had to go. And in that time, I started doing public appearances, like I went on the Gary Knowles show and started doing things like that, just talking about smallpox and polio, because those were my focus, because everyone's saying, what about smallpox, what about polio? And then when I started finding out, I became obsessed with it. It was so interesting. So I was morbidly fascinated by the whole thing and about how everything I found was absolutely contrary to what the mainstream dogma is. And what I had was a mountain that, pile high to the ceiling, and they had sound bites. They had nothing to fight back with me on, nothing. So this guy named Roman Vystrianic heard me on the radio show, and he rung my office, and after his third call, I was like, I guess I better call this guy back. And he had this idea for a book, and he had done all the charts and the graphics and started writing the narrative around that of what the historical document showed. then I came in as kind of the medical person that was obsessed with polio and smallpox and happened to know quite a bit about pertussis. So we started writing the book together, and there's got to be, if you were to take a full-time job, 20 years, at least 20 years, but for me it was condensed because I became obsessed after I quit my job. All I did, I basically had no money. I lived in a tent with a pop-up camper. That was my office, and I was like crazy Ted Kaczynski, obsessed with polio in my tent. And
Wow.
so no, I didn't have apprehension. I was like, this information, it's been so, the U.S. polio surveillance unit charts were supposed to be available in libraries. Lo and behold, every library I went to find them, I was told they're not here. There's only one library, the AMA library, and you have to have special high security clearance to look at them. Well, I won't say how, but I got a hold of them. And what those documents show is that it wasn't just Cutter Laboratories that had a problem with live polio. It wasn't just Wyeth. All the vaccine, we didn't talk about this, but all the vaccine companies had a problem with live virus in their injectable vaccines during Salk's year. So 1954, 1955, up to 1959, they all were producing vaccines with live virus in it because Salk wouldn't listen to the scientists abroad who were saying his inactivation curve was where the sun doesn't shine. So that beginning of that and just tracking all that down and asking the questions that you asked, well, where did polio go? Well, what was really causing the paralysis? Why don't we see it today? Like, I had to answer all those questions, and every question I answered, it was so satisfying that I just wanted to go on to the next question. And so there was never any hesitation because I was so single-minded that I didn't think about, the threats that could happen as a result of that. And it wasn't until after the book was out that the threats happened, and I'm still here. And look, I figured if anybody wants to do me in now, the timing is really bad because this is pretty much out there now.
It's been out there for a while. The Jonas Salk thing was also wild. I thought Jonas Salk was this genius that created this incredible virus to save humanity.
Yeah, so did I. So many of our childhood fables turn out not to be true. But that was a big one, and it's still hard for a lot of people to believe, but I just think it's like anything. Like, if you're open to different information, and I always say, look, I can make mistakes. I'm not infallible. Someone has actually found a mistake in the book. I actually went in and corrected it. But that's the difference between me and these other people, is that if I made a mistake, I want to know about it, and I will go and make it right, and I will publicly admit that I made a mistake. But I will say that 99.9% of what's in this book is true, factual, and provable. And because I've done the research, but it's a hard thing to do. What doctor's going to quit their job? I was lucky. I didn't have kids. I didn't have, medical royalty ancestors who would have been disappointed in me. I came from nothing. I wasn't afraid to go back to nothing. And so that's why I was willing to live in a tent until this thing was done and published in 2013.
How long did it take you?
I started working on it. Roman had been working on it for years. He had been going to libraries because his kids got hit hard by an ex-wife who jabbed them. He didn't know about it, and they got really sick, and then he started looking at old graphs and going, that doesn't make sense. So he got obsessed in his own way with the numbers. He's the numbers guy. And so he had been working on it, and then the two of us together worked on it probably from 2009 to 2013. And then it was published in 2013, but we couldn't find a publisher. Even the alternative publishers didn't want anything to do with it, so we self-published. And then after it was successful, guess who wanted to publish our book? And I was like, nope, sorry. We're going to carry on the way we are. Oh, but you're going to get such more credibility. It's like, unlikely.
That's funny.
We did okay.
If you give us money, you'll get credibility.
You
Let
give
us take a
most
part
your
of your
profits.
successful business that you
Yeah.
worked on for 5 years or 4 years.
We'll give you $1 a book.
That would be sweet.
Yeah.
What a great deal. And then I'll have prestige behind my name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been published by a real company. When was the last time you looked at a book and said, let me check who published this?
Exactly.
You
right.
know, maybe make sure. Somebody recommended this book, but
Self-published. It's all
I
lies.
have never heard of this publisher. This is outrageous.
What's that there? Forbidden Science.
Oh, Jacques Vallée. Jacques Vallée is probably the most interesting UFO researcher that I've ever talked to. He's the guy that was, you remember the French scientist? You remember Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Did you see that movie?
A long time ago. But
Long
yeah.
time ago. Do you remember there's a French scientist on the grounds coordinating with the army and explaining to everybody what's going on?
Okay.
That French scientist is modeled after this guy. This guy's been following UFOs since like the 50s or the 60s? Did you say the 50s? Like, a long time. He's an older gentleman, but he's fascinating.
Okay.
And he's very rational. Like when he talks about it, it's like he is very objective in what's nonsense and what's true and what we can explain. It's a fascinating subject.
I think similar threads would run through his experience, definitely.
Oh, I'm
Forbidden
sure.
science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for the longest time, it was a ridiculed subject. It didn't have the same societal impact as being a vaccine skeptic or an anti-vaxxer.
Right.
Like with that pejorative, they've done an incredible job of scaring people into just falling in line, because if you question it and someone said, "Oh, did you know he's an anti-vaxxer?"
Right. That's
Like,
enough. That's it.
That's all you need to hear, and you're going to get it after this podcast. And I've already gotten
You're
it.
going to get it big time.
I've gotten it already.
They'll start picking apart my facts and they'll want to come on and dismantle. This is what always happens. I come in first, I tell my story, and then they bring in the experts who are able to take, without me being in the room, of course, because I can't be able to defend myself, and then let the public believe that everything I said was just one big stack of lies.
Well, there'll definitely be the usual suspects that'll be doing that. But has anyone ever tried to sit down with you and have a conversation publicly about this? And refute it?
Not that I can recall.
No one's offered?
Yeah, I have to say I'm not that interested in doing that, because I just feel like, debate it's an actual skill to be a debater. People study debate and people
Right.
get really good at it. And I'm not a debater. Like if somebody wanted to debate me in writing, I would be happy to do that, because then I could sit there and take my time, go through the references that I needed, rather than having to,
Right. That makes sense. Like a
have the artillery
Substack.
ready to hit, at me without having a shield. Pretty
Right,
much.
and there's an anxiety aspect to that, and there's a lot of adrenaline and emotions, and yeah, it's a skill.
But I would do it only if we had a topic that was, basically agreed upon beforehand, that we could both upskill on and use what we know as that debate point. But it usually just becomes character assassination.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. It's super unfortunate, and it's really transparent when it's about a serious subject. Like, why do you have to attack someone's who they are, make it ridicule them, instead of just refuting the facts or laying out your case?
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't make sense that anybody who's right would do that. That's not what you do when you're right. That's what you do when you're trying to ridicule people. And you're usually trying to ridicule people because you need an edge. It's like a bully. They're like, if you see fighters, like a UFC fighter in his prime, like Anderson Silva is one of the greatest of all time. If someone got in his face and tried to intimidate him, it would be kind of hilarious, because he was the best fighter in the world.
Right.
So he wouldn't even have to do it back. He could just smile at you. And that's sort of the same here. When you're ridiculing someone, like right off the bat, a bunch of ad hominems about that person, you're trying to diminish that person to set up your argument as being superior because you're the superior intellect. And you're doing that because you don't feel like you're on level playing field.
Yeah.
And so you want to try to do something to push them off, make fun of them in some sort of way, instead of just laying out your version of what reality is. Lay out your version if you're so strong. If you're so correct, it should be super easy to do.
Well, just like in sports, it's the same here. It's like cheating is for losers. If you're a winner, you don't have to cheat. And that's the same with them. Like, if their product is so wonderful that everybody needs it so badly, then why is there such what they say is that we're too stupid to understand how they're saving our lives and how this is one of the big arguments that we really ought to touch on, is that they say that our lifespan has improved as a result of medical interventions. When what we show in here, what other scientists have shown, is that it's about 3.5% of the contribution from medicine goes into our extended lifespan. 3.5% based on antibiotics, vaccines, etc. The rest of it was all about the revolution, the health revolution, the clean water, the shelter, the electricity, the child labor laws, ending. So the magic of medicine is not what people think, and it really traps a lot of people. Like, I think there's a value to the medical field in terms of surgery and certain drugs, and if you have an organ failure, like, absolutely. But why not? Like, my Hippocratic oath said that I should consult, any consultant that will help my patient and keep the well-being of my patient stable. Well, to me, that includes, using every therapy that is as the most benign therapies possible first, the ones that work along with the blueprint of the human body, that go along with the theory of health rather than pounding down disease, you're always going to get a better result that way, assuming you've got time and you haven't waited till the last minute.
Well, you certainly will get a better result if you do get the disease that way. Like the idea that you could just ignore everything but of medication is so silly. And it doesn't, the only reason why you would do that is if that's the only way you make your money. And that's really, especially if you're in the vaccine business and you have an enormous ad budget and you're sponsoring all the television networks.
Well, that's the big thing. And the other thing is people trust what they see on the television.
Right.
CNN was my go-to thing for the
Mine
longest
too.
time. Yeah. Now I look at it and I think, oh my goodness. You know what cracked it for me is when they publicly villainized Andy Wakefield. And I actually knew the story behind Andy Wakefield at the time.
What was that story?
The story behind him is that he was a doctor. You'll hear he was publicly shamed. His license was removed. He published an article about what he called toxic nodular enterocolitis in children with autism. He was a gastroenterologist, a very high level, very well-respected, decorated gastroenterologist. And he published this paper which remained in the journal for 12 years. And all it said at the end was further research needs to be done in order to see if there is any real connection between the MMR vaccine, autism, and toxic nodular enterocolitis. These kids suffer with horrible bowel disease. It's not just brain disease. And so he was about to publish another paper showing that in this certain type of monkeys that were vaccinated against hepatitis B lost a lot of their reflexes and had problems. And it was on the eve of the publication of that paper that his original paper was revoked. And ever since then, he has been the poster child for vaccine nonsense, for anti-vax crazy people. And in fact, every time I've done anything, his name, funny that I brought his name up, I love him, he's a great guy, but his name would always come up, well, you're a friend of Andy Wakefield. Or no, Andy Wakefield, because autism and vaccines has been debunked because Andy Wakefield lied. And he didn't lie. All he said is, I did biopsies, I saw this, and this is possibly a connection. And since then, other scientists have come in, done the same thing, biopsies. Then they looked at whether the vaccine virus was in that biopsy, and it wasn't a wild virus, it was a vaccine virus in that area, not the surrounding area. So there is a relationship between gut disease, MMR vaccine, retained, virus that hasn't been processed properly because it didn't come into your body properly, and disease, brain disease. So that's a fact, but CNN did a hit job on Andy Wakefield, and I remember going, well, what's going on here? Because I know what happened with that whole situation. Now CNN is saying this, and that was kind of when, the windscreen cracked for me, and I just had to start questioning anything. And then you've got, the doctors that go on there. There are a couple doctors, I think you interviewed one of them, didn't you?
Sanjay Gupta.
Yeah. There was a guy before him. Some of the stuff he said was pretty unbelievable. That's what the public's going to hear. Your best chances of dealing with this is to just get the vaccine. You don't want to get shingles? Get that vaccine. Never mind the whole other truth around that, because, like you say, it's the advertisers, but it's bigger than that.
Does the shingles vaccine work?
Well, what do you think about giving yourself a vaccine for something you already have? Like, you think about it. Like, chicken pox is a disease that we all got as kids. You got it as a kid, probably. Well, you're kind of superhuman, though. You didn't get COVID.
I got it eventually.
You did, yeah. So you got it eventually. It broke you down. But I got chicken pox really bad, and then...
I got chicken pox when I was a
yeah,
kid.
there you go. So back in the old days, we would all get chicken pox, and then we'd be exposed to other kids that had chicken pox.
We'd go over kids' houses if they had chicken pox.
Yeah, people do. They still do
Yeah.
that. I didn't have to. I got it somehow. I don't know how I got it, probably from my brother. And so you have this dormant, this virus lays dormant in your body until your immune system breaks down. So, but part of it is not just your immune system breakdown, it's the fact that all these kids are now vaccinated, and the circulation of the disease. See, some vaccines work in terms of they stop the circulation of the disease, but at a detriment to us. So it's been a detriment for measles, and it's been a detriment for chickenpox. So chickenpox we used to get continuously. You didn't have adults didn't get shingles. It was very rare for adults to get shingles before the chickenpox vaccine came out. Extremely rare. But since then, the rate of shingles in adults and children has skyrocketed because we're no longer getting our boosters being exposed to the circulating microbes. So now the solution to that is to give adults like 4 times the dose of the childhood chickenpox in an injectable vaccine against something that they already have. And so the theory is that you're going to ramp up your antibodies, and then you're going to be able to do battle if your virus is come out again. The only problem with that is that the problem is the immune system. If you get AIDS or you're on chemotherapy, your chances of that happening are really high. And yeah, does the vaccine work or not? I don't know, but I just don't think it's just, to me, just a completely strange concept to inject myself with something that I already have, along with all the other excipients and compounds that go in a vaccine that nobody wants to talk about either.
So can you explain how a vaccine is manufactured? Like, how could they not know all the different stuff that's in it? Like, let's talk about like how the SV40 got in there. So, you need something alive. You need some sort of pigs. And it's crazy. It's crazy, and it ultimately destroys the fabric of our society. And you know, there's plenty of evidence that cops have done bad things. It's not excusing the bad cops. There's bad plumbers, there's bad car mechanics, there's bad everything. And there's people that shouldn't be cops. And when you see a video of someone who shouldn't be a cop and is, you know, on their last nerve and snaps at someone or overreacts at someone or brutalizes someone totally unnecessarily, it gives you a very distorted perception of the average encounter that a person has with police officers. Because most of the interactions that people have with police officers are fine. Most of them. The vast majority. No one gets hurt. No one goes to jail. Most of them. You know, but you see the ones that go sideways and you think, this is what cops are doing. They're out there trying to kill people.
Wait, that's one of the disadvantages, I suppose, of the way the algorithms work, that edge cases that are unbelievable and shocking are the ones that catch the most fire.
Right.
And what it creates is it moves the fringe to the middle, because most of what you see by design is the stuff that's the most outlandish.
And then it gets used as a political tool.
Correct.
Yeah.
You mentioned about Biden and Kamala. What do you think you do if you're either of them now? Like, Trump's just running ragged, flying high, having all of this fun. Like, what are they doing? Like, what do you do when you've lost two people have lost a campaign in the space of 6 months?
I don't know. Tim Walz is out there talking again.
Did you say he could fight any Trump supporter?
Yeah, he says he kicked their ass, and they're scared of him because he can fix a truck. They're threatened by his masculinity. I know how to fix a truck. That's what he said. Like, do you? I bet you don't.
The lady doth protest too much.
I bet you don't.
I fear.
I bet if I bring a broken truck to you and a bag of tools, you're fucked.
That was kind of the redress, right? That was the attempt. It was like, we're gonna the symbol of masculinity on the left is going to be Tim Walz. It was Aragon from Lord of the Rings, and Tim Walz.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I think they're lost. I mean, they're also lost in that they can't control the narrative anymore. I think when they had control of Twitter and they had control of essentially all of social media and pre-Trump, they had the reins like firmly held. They were in control of the public narrative. If you strayed from that, you will be kicked off social media. You'll be banned from YouTube. And for things that were factually correct. Like the lab leak theory is now finally being embraced by the New York Times. The New York Times, I don't know if you saw that article the other day.
No.
They said we were misled. Like, bro, you misled us.
We were misled by ourselves.
There was a big op-ed in the New York Times that has people up in arms because they're like, fucking duh, you're finally, do you know where it is? I could send it to you. I saved it because it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I was like, what are you saying? How are you saying that? It was you guys. It wasn't just some random people that did that. You find it anywhere, Jamie? I know I saved it. It was the New York Times saying that we were misled. There was a big op-ed in the New York Times. Yeah, I read it. I read it for like the first couple chapters, but it's all duh. That the whole thing is just fucking duh. God, where did I save it? I save too many things. I'm a hoarder.
Digital hoarder.
I'm a digital hoarder.
Do you know why that happens? Do you know why people hoard stuff? The interesting way that their brains work. So, looking around this table, you're able to discern between stuff that is useful and stuff that isn't.
There useful. It is. We were badly misled about the event that changed our lives. Who are you badly misled by? Do you think you guys had a factor in that? Since scientists began playing around with dangerous pathogens in laboratories, the world has experienced 4 or 5 pandemics. depending on how you count. One of them, the 1977 Russian flu, almost certainly sparked by a research mishap. Some Western scientists quickly suspected the odd virus had resided in a lab freezer for a couple of decades, but they kept mostly quiet for fear of ruffling feathers. Yet in 2020, when people started speculating that a lab accident might have been the spark that started the COVID-19 pandemic, they were treated like kooks and cranks in this newspaper. Many public health officials and prominent, by the way, not by this person, I'm not blaming this person. Many public health officials and prominent scientists dismissed the idea as a conspiracy theory. I wonder why they did that. I wonder if there's an email paper trail that's already been established. There is. Insisting that a virus had emerged from animals in a seafood market in Wuhan, China. And when a nonprofit called Eco Health Alliance lost a grant because it was planning to conduct risky research into bat viruses with the Wuhan Institute of Virology, research that, if conducted with lax safety standards, could have resulted in a dangerous pathogen leaking out into the world. No fewer than 77 Nobel laureates and 31 scientific societies lined up to defend the organization. Yeah, they defend themselves. I mean, it's appeal to authority, and they fucked us. And you guys were a part of it, by the way. That newspaper was a big part of it. Big part of calling the lab leak theory racist, which was really kooky.
It's strange that everything is concretized on the internet for the rest of time.
You know,
I mean, people can go back and try and like retrograde remove stuff that happened, but there's always Internet Archive is fantastic for this.
yeah, for the most part, you can find it if
Yeah.
you're inspired.
So how is it that so many U-turns, regardless of what it is, regardless of which side it is, the sort of permanent state of amnesia that everybody's in? There was this this WhatsApp message. You ever have one of those WhatsApp messages where it says forwarded many times?
Yes.
At the top, and you're like, oh, this is going to be good.
Right.
And yeah, it's just an advert. It's just a banner. Forwarded many times. And it was a single squaddy, a guy in fatigues, walking down the street in London. And a screenshot, I think, of a text saying that someone had said that the army was going to be deployed on the streets of London to keep everybody in the house through martial law. That this was how intense that the lockdowns were going to get. And it was going to happen on this particular day. It goes crazy on Facebook, crazy on WhatsApp. Never happened. I'm like, all of the people that shared that were adamant, that created all of these stories and theories around it, like, no one ever actually went to go and call those people out about what it was that they'd pushed. All of the people that were adamant, global health passports, the vaccine passport, that's going to come, that's going to happen. I mean, the unfalsifiable version of it is because we knew that it was going to happen, they weren't able to do it. So actually we were the righteous resistance in doing the thing. And the same with whether it's lab leak theory, whether it's Joe Biden's mental decline, no matter what it is, you can put this position out there. It's fucking fortified on the internet for the rest of time. And after long enough, you're like, I don't remember that. You know, you're like fucking the most gaslighty partner that you've ever been with. Like, I'm not. Are you sure? Yeah, I don't think I did say that. I do this like fucking fugazi like switcheroo. It's a lexical Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I don't have to atone for my previous sins anymore.
Well, I think in this case, you have an individual journalist who wrote this story. I do not know the history of this individual journalist, but what they said is accurate and important. So it's good that the New York Times has this come to Jesus moment where they lay out, hey, the conspiracy theories were all true. That's what the title should be. The conspiracy theories were all true. Yeah, the shot wasn't effective. Yeah, there were therapeutics that were available that were dismissed, and that bad studies were created in order to make sure that people weren't taking these drugs because we needed the emergency use authorization. And the only way you can get that is if you have no treatment. So you had to rely on one thing, and that one thing was the vaccine. And they all participated in it.
How much do you think New York Times with articles like that, Bezos coming out recently and saying that there's this sort of balance thing that he's got going on at the Washington Post, Zuckerberg's recent sort of pivot with regards to fact-checking on meta platforms, how many of those do you think would have happened if there hadn't been a Trump victory in November? How much of this is blowing with the wind, do you think?
Most of it's blowing with the wind. It's the society's decided we're done. You know, this was Trump getting elected, this was Elon buying Twitter, this was, and this is the blowback that you're seeing, these organized protests and vandalism on Tesla dealerships and they're encouraging people. There's so many videos of people just smashing Teslas, carving swastikas into the side of Teslas. Because Sentry mode, these cars all have Sentry mode. So you could leave your Tesla parked and it has HD video of everything that's happening all around
And it uploads it so you can just see who did what?
Yeah, you can watch it. That's why all these videos are out. All these videos are out as people extract them from their cars.
The video isn't published by the rioters, the video is published by the victims.
Exactly.
Fuck.
Yeah. And there's tons of people that have been arrested for this now. Tons of people.
I don't know what, I mean, I guess it's a way of trying to protest against some person that you don't like.
Yeah, but it's funded. That's what's crazy. And it's all because what Elon is doing with USAID and what he's doing with Doge. The Department of Government Efficiency is finding a lot of inefficiency, waste, and fraud. Most of it he believes is waste. Some of it is fraud. And there's a lot of money that's going in directions it shouldn't be going. And then there's stuff that's legal that probably shouldn't be legal, like non-government organizations doing the bidding of the government because they're funded by the government. There's certain things the government is not allowed to do, but a non-government organization, an NGO, can do. And
What's an example of that?
well, regime change. Like a lot of what this money is going to, it goes to foreign countries where we have an interest in having the people that are running that country on our side, or we don't like them and we want to fund the rebels. And so you can fund the people, you can fund them through all sorts of organizations where you hide and mask the money and you move it around and you have essentially blank checks. And you can just funnel billions of dollars all over the world with no accounting.
Mike Benz is like the most prophetic person of all time,
Oh
isn't
my
he?
God. I mean, he talked about it on this podcast before Doge and before USAID, and everybody's like, oh, conspiracy theorists and this and that. This guy, so he used to work for the State Department. What the fuck does he know? Apparently he knows everything. He knows all of it, and he can spit it out. His recall is incredible.